Okay, so sorry. What do you have
You're
to
good.
say?
You're good.
It works.
You're
It works
back to
now.
normal.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
All right, let's
Maybe-
let the
Okay,
conservative
this is
go.
the thing.
Okay,
If you're not
sorry,
using
that
a mic,
conservative girl. What's going
Okay,
on?
No,
Mexican Republican
guys, we need
conservative
to
girl.
stop. It's that conservative girl's turn.
Using a mic.
What do you have to say?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so my dad's an immigration lawyer, and we were like talking about it, and I think that like the biggest problem with immigration right now is that like it's either that the children are kept with the parents in prison or they're separated, and I think that we have to like come to a consensus and like kind of have an agreement on like what we want to do, because like either the children are kept in like prisons with their parents or they're separated from their parents. So I think that like I feel like our country needs to come up with like a way to do that, but like without the children being in prison, but like also without them being in like.
What do you? Can I ask what you mean by imprisoned? Are you talking about like the
Detention centers.
detention centers?
Because they're like it's because a lot of people they want to be kept with their children, so they'll have to stay with them in the detention centers, or they'll have to or they will be separated from their family and like go. I don't know where else they go. But.
Okay, but you know the risk with that is a lot of the families crossing the borders are actually fake families, and you shouldn't be keeping kids with adults because there's things like just sexual assault in general. Like you don't keep in general prison. You don't keep the normal prison with like juvie kids.
Right,
You know what I mean?
I feel like they should be separated from their family too, but I feel like that we need to have a better like way to keep them, but without keeping them in like those in detention centers.
Well, it depends on which policy you're speaking of, because if I'm not mistaken, Trump did recently pass, or maybe not recently, but I remember the Remain in Mexico policy. I'm not sure if that's still in place for a lot of immigrants, but I mean, at a certain point, a lot of them are just kept together waiting to come in. So, I mean, if they come into the country and they're being held, then that might be an issue. But I think in general, it could also be just expediting the, path to citizenship and visas and stuff like that. That would, help not having to hold them all together, but, kind of get them out of the system. But yeah. Did that answer your question? Sorry. Apparently. All right.
She's muted.
We'll go with the yes.
Hands raised. We're gonna go to Fred Miller. Fred, what's going on?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's
Great. Okay, so I'm more of like a center right person. I was getting into kind of like a debate or argument with a liberal friend of mine. I got a little bit heated, and the person was kind of calling me a couple of names. They were kind of slurring me as, I guess, like racist or supporting immigration policy that was like no immigration at all. Like some sort of, they're kind of calling me names and mean things like that. And I was wondering like what you would say to people who smear conservatives like Trump every single day for just having different immigration policy or any policy in general.
If you've been called a name, you automatically won the argument.
Yeah, whenever they insult you as a person, you've won.
The second that they leave the topic to insult you personally, you have won, and there's no more reason to argue.
Yeah, because it really, I'll tell you, it really hurt my feelings when, we're close friends. We had ideas and all that, and
this is a griper.
It's such a griper.
It's really
dude.
Just tragic, honestly.
I already said it. It's a troll, dude.
What do you mean? I'm literally a center right person. So,
you're literally a groiper.
like,
you don't have your camera on. You
I
just
don't get
sound
it.
like a groiper.
Fred Miller.
Yeah, because my camera's. I'm on my iPhone.
Well, same person as yesterday.
Good, your
I'm on
iPhone
my
has a
iPhone
camera.
right now.
It sounds.
Your iPhone
Yeah,
has a
and
camera.
it's not
The
working.
voices
It's
sound like
literally an
generic
iPhone
tool.
3GS. Like I don't know what you
You
want me to do.
groiper
like,
neo-Nazi.
Fun fact.
Holy
Fun
cow.
fact.
That's
Fun
so
fact. The
mean.
iPhone 3GS does not run Zoom. I have one at home. It doesn't. So I mean, you're kind of a liar, but it's all right.
You
Same
really
person
have one at home?
yesterday.
I don't think
You
so.
have
Mine
one.
does.
You're the same person yesterday who started screaming.
Oh
What are you talking
yeah,
about?
bro. Yeah.
He's the same person.
I literally.
No one gives a fuck what you literally.
Wait, is this the dude that gave us the laugh screen that like made me
Yes,
almost shit my pants?
Yes.
Dude,
Okay,
that laughing scream.
We're gonna
I
go.
wanted to die, dude. That was not nice.
I'm not gonna unmute Mahatma Gandhi. I feel like that's a troll.
Dude, that's racist. Come on, now you have to.
That's not racist at all.
Well, you gotta give it a try. And if they do troll, kick them.
All right, man. Mahatma Gandhi, we're coming to you. What's going on?
Yo, so like, remind me what you guys were talking about again. My bad. I wasn't.
Oh, is this the kid with the homework?
It's your question. So basically, you ask us a question,
Gonna get
and then
spanked.
Yeah, you're bringing up the topics.
so then we discuss it.
Well, like you guys were talking about like Democrats and Republicans, right?
Sure, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, you're done.
Dude, that's the kid that's gonna get spanked by his mom.
With the homework, yep.
I got to pass my test tomorrow.
All right. Devin Severance has a question.
Oh, Devin.
He does not have a question.
Oh wait, that's Devin.
Devin.
Oh, what's up, Devin?
Devin is awesome, bro. I like
Just that
Devin.
man who Devin the Boy Scout. The team.
He likes to be a Boy Scout. How girls should be in Boy Scouts.
No, and if you're not in Boy Scouts, I don't really think your opinion is very.
That's what Devin says.
It's not
at
that
least.
they don't
In
have
Boy
a say
Scouts.
then. You can
Okay,
still
so
watch.
we're gonna go to that Catholic girl. What's going on?
Okay.
Can you not hear it?
I have a couple things.
Devin, be quiet.
You have
The
a couple
first thing
things.
is, that girl who's saying the autism stuff. Yeah, my little brother is autistic, and he's one of the smartest people I know.
Yeah,
That's
what
one of-
a lot of people actually don't understand about autism is there's such a spectrum.
Yeah,
Like-
he's like
functional.
Like the guy who does my lawn work has autism.
really.
Yeah. But he's like on the side. He's like on the autism spectrum where he can like function.
Yeah, highly functional. Yeah.
For sure. No, there's people who are crazy.
My little
Crazy
brother has
smart.
autism.
My hand was raised.
And
Then you're fucking unmuted.
I forgot the other thing, so you can just
Watch your
move.
mouth.
How is
Alright.
Devin.
Thank you.
How did this happen?
All right.
It's a Zoom call.
Devin, you're unmuted.
I know I am.
You
Am I
said,
loud?
don't talk to someone
Yes.
else. Yeah, you're pretty loud. We can all hear you.
The only people who have their hands raised now are the people who have already spoken.
Yeah, so someone else.
It's my
Zoom
cousin.
libertarian.
Can we get Nick and Lance in here again so we can
Oh,
just spike
Lance
to
was-
100?
Can we get Nick? You know what? Let's see if we can get some Nick videos actually going on.
Or Lance, dude. Once they came in, we spiked to 100
Get
in
Nick
like
in
2
here.
seconds.
Oh, Nick Videos is playing Warzone with Polo Boy right now. He's not coming in.
Do they need a third? I can carry them.
Do they need a third? Let's see if we can get some Lance videos.
Get Aubrey in here. We want to see you guys simp for each
Yeah,
other.
Aubrey was the one that told us to start this. Like,
She never does.
We have Caden Kyle with his hand up.
I think she told us to start it for Josh, so it's okay.
Caden Kyle, you're unmuted.
Yes, I had a question. What's your opinion on this? So you know how like when they was trying to impeach Trump for doing like talking and stuff over the borders and stuff, and like what if like Joe Biden or somebody became president? I'm just saying if this happens, he, you know, like the Democrats made up all this stuff, right? And like he should be able to fire back at them for making stuff up too, right? Shouldn't he?
I don't know your question. Sorry, dude. I wasn't able to really follow that.
I'm missing your question.
Like I have an opinion, like I need your opinion or something. So like you know, like they was making up all this stuff to impeach Trump, right? And like
It's not made up. It just wasn't like indicted on it.
There just wasn't enough evidence to sustain it to vote guilty.
Yeah.
No, they just didn't allow for witnesses.
Thank you.
That
Yeah,
too.
sorry about that.
There wasn't enough
Well, I
evidence.
mean,
This was
obviously
off the
that's what
witness.
I believe. Obviously, it's what I believe, but like, if like, yeah, is that they blocked.
If you defy a congressional subpoena, that doesn't mean there's no evidence. It means you refuse to let them see the
But
evidence.
also Nancy
I
Pelosi just
probably
didn't work well
fucked up
enough. Like
this
Nancy
year, I
Pelosi did
know.
not work hard enough on it.
Well, no, the reason they
No,
didn't
no, no,
subpoena
no,
more
no,
people, the reason they didn't
no.
subpoena more people was because of the fact that if you subpoena someone and then they deny it, you have to take it into the court. And basically these court procedures can take like upwards of, 6 months to a year, and they just really didn't have that time. So it came down to the fact of, all right, are we really going to subpoena
But dude,
this person and get into
it
a
was
long
Nancy
court
Pelosi
battle?
didn't want to do the work though. Like
Okay,
actually.
I don't look. I'm not a mainstream Democrat. I'm not even a Democrat. I'm a libertarian. All I'm saying is.
I'm a Republican.
Okay.
I don't know
but
about that, Ben. Nancy Pelosi is one of the most effective speakers of the House, probably in history.
Dude, the impeachment
know,
papers
dude.
were denied for a reason.
Didn't do work.
She wanted the Senate to make the papers for her. Like, what?
I'm sorry. I'm not following. what
I'm
you're
not
talking
well
about.
versed on Nancy Pelosi at all.
All I know is ripping up his speech was not a very smart or tactical move. That's regardless.
It was people see her as being like a bad bitch for doing it, but it's honestly really just it's like
I
showing
got-
that
Respectful.
she's not the bigger person in the situation, which is very not smart in her.
I mean, I enjoyed it.
I mean, who did
watch.
enjoy it? It's
Of
controversy,
course
but
you
it's
did,
also
Christian. You
government.
think communism is okay?
I mean, Trump
Who
did
thinks communism
Trump
is
did snub her
okay?
handshake, right?
Christian.
Trump did snub her handshake, right?
He didn't introduce him
yeah.
right.
But Christian, it's okay because of the music.
after he kind of did snub her handshake. So
No. He did it before.
Yo,
Me.
if socialism's evil, clap your hands.
In most cases.
I'm clapping.
In all cases.
No, but it's okay because of their music.
Okay, so
Cuban music.
just in are they still in mute?
No, I don't know. I'm sorry, dude. I really didn't get that
I
question.
completely lost where they're at. Okay, I guess if they speak again, we'll just unmute them. So we're gonna go to Stefan Solinsky.
Is the dude with the Zoomer name in here still? We should unmute him.
I don't know. Stefan, what's going on?
All right, so
Holy shit.
like,
Oh, he's
so
got Fortnite in the back.
let's just support the Democrats.
Support or abort?
He said
He said
abort.
Dude, this is the second time you've unmuted him, bro.
No, that's not. That's like a different kid.
Oh, wait,
No,
can
he
you
un-
just
keeps
literally?
changing his
Why don't you
name.
just be kicking the people who think it's a joke? Like honestly.
Josh.
This
Josh, you
dude,
gotta be a dictator on this.
All right, vote kick.
Fascism.
Be an
Guys,
Ashton.
John's dead.
he's out, and then Mahatma Gandhi is gonna be out too.
I still
Let's
can't
go.
believe that has died.
I don't think I'm not believing until I see it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
I don't
let's
think we should
let's-
believe
let's- let's-
anything because it's North Korea.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Literally
I'm not
North
gonna believe
Korea.
them because
We have
That's
Alright,
like
boys.
that's like
Aubrey's
believing
in
the number.
here.
That's like
Where's
believing
Aubrey
the
at?
number of cases
It's
from China.
Ob's
Like, come on now.
RAH founder. I don't even want to try.
Ben, what are you doing?
Impersonator.
Why would you send me that?
Wait, what did
I'm blocking you, Ben.
No, don't block me. Don't.
I think
Yeah,
I
for the,
blocked
for the
Ben.
people, for the majority of people who are staying muted right now, can you open chat so they can talk to each other?
Yeah, go ahead and open the chat. But if
Yeah,
it
it
starts
tends
screaming the N-word, then turn it back off.
It tends to get annoying if they can't have their word while.
No, dude, they say
can
some
have their own
bad
style
stuff.
of conversation.
I don't get why people hate
Hi.
it.
Hello.
Hi, Aubrey.
No,
Hi,
they say
Aubrey.
the N word and
All right,
kill
we're gonna
Hillary
go.
stuff. It's not
Listen,
cool.
Hi, babe.
Oh, no.
we're gonna go mute
Aubrey,
Jordan,
shh.
spelled
That's
Jordyne. So Jordan, what's going on?
Oh my god, I've had my hand raised since the beginning. But I don't even know what to say anymore because I was originally gonna say something about the abortion topic, but we kind of moved on from that. So I'll just stop here.
All right, well, thank you.
I have not done enough
Mute
yet.
yourself.
Thank you for your time.
Hi,
I mean, I can talk, but I might lose.
All right, we have Harrison on TikTok. Harrison, what's going on?
Hi,
This is a great.
so I was just gonna ask, what do you think about like the electoral college, and do you think we should still use that?
No.
No.
Yes,
abolish
I
it.
think so.
Popular vote will increase voter turnout, and it will give everyone an equal say.
All I
Hashtag
have to
abolish
say
the
about
college.
this is that it's interesting how we are divided based on who is benefiting from the electoral college. I don't consider myself a Democrat, but as a libertarian, I do lean more left. 2 out of the 3 past elections have been overturned by the electoral college when it comes to, in the favor of the Republicans. Now, it seems like a odd idea for me because the point of the electoral college was to ensure that candidates would have to campaign in all states nationwide because we didn't have something called the internet where you could look up, what they're saying and kind of get a general gist of what their platform is. We obviously don't live in that age anymore. It doesn't make sense that, every single person's vote should be, equal and popular vote. I see no issue on why that should not determine who's president. The person who gets the most votes should be president. That's how I view it. But I mean, I can see the other side. So yeah, I mean, sorry, someone else can totally.
I'm not. I was gonna let y'all take that. I'm not well versed at all on whether or not the electoral college.
I mean, it's a very one-sided issue, right? I mean, generally the reason they don't want to abolish the electoral college is because the last 2 Republican presidents didn't win a popular vote.
Yeah.
Totally.
That,
Completely.
and I can see the argument where it from these big blue swinging states like California has hella people in it.
California is, Texas is the 2nd largest electoral state, right?
Yeah, and Texas is a red state, so it balances out. But I've heard both arguments. I've yet to form an opinion on that.
So, like, even if you don't necessarily agree with the popular vote, I think at like most, you probably would want to support some sort of like change within the electoral college. And if you're a Republican, probably the best change you can support, if you don't want to go all the way and support, the popular vote, would be the allocation of, would be proportional allocation of like the state's delegates for the electoral college, which means that instead of one state takes all delegates, right, or one party takes all delegates in a state, it'd be proportional. So if you win 30% of the vote in Michigan, then the Democrats would get 30% of the delegates, and then you could do that the entire way. It encourages voting because you won't have necessarily like swing states to a certain extent. You still have those swing states, right? But like they won't necessarily play as big of a role. And like if you're an individual in Alabama and you're a Democrat and Alabama swings red like every single time, this gives you an incentive to vote, right?
Right.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
honestly see both sides of the argument. I think a lot of Republicans don't abolish it for the sole fact that, like for example, Hillary won the popular vote, but like Electoral College voted Trump. So I mean, I think you got to look at all perspectives here. You can't just solely base your opinion off being a Republican because obviously it's in your favor.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Well, thank you, Harrison.
Yeah.
Unmute that Catholic girl.
Zach, Catholic girl, you are back again. What's going on?
I remembered my question.
All right, what's up?
If you had to vote for one of the Democratic candidates, which one would you vote for? Like Elizabeth Warren?
There's only one
I mean,
left.
if I had to, I'd vote
I know, like back in the
No, she's
early.
talking like back when even Andrew Yang was still in the race. Like,
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
when everyone was.
We'll
still
see
there.
Gabbard.
No. Pete
Sanders.
Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg.
We're just gonna
Sanders
ignore
for
Marianne Williamson.
Probably Biden.
I'll do a write-in and
Hold
put
on.
these nuts.
Josiah, like there's no good. Okay, whatever.
Josiah, you
cannot-
contradict yourself.
Hey,
now.
at least we can all
Biden is a racist.
Okay,
racist?
time out, Josh. I think it is important to realize that if we're going to declare someone as a racist, we need to acknowledge racism on both sides, and especially say that yes, Biden said some questionable things back in probably the 70s or early 80s when
Or
it
like
came
2
to
weeks ago.
segregation involving busing. Now, I think, what? Sorry, you broke up.
I said like 2 weeks ago.
No, what did you say 2 weeks ago that was racist?
The poor kids, white kid.
Poor
white
kids
kids.
are just.
Okay.
So is that the
Okay.
dementia
Okay.
or the
Time
racism?
out. Time out. And I agree. And listen. Okay. I don't like Joe Biden. I do have to say, I think he was probably, that was a flub. And it is true that white children, yes, obviously it was a flub. White and white families have an average net worth that is 8 times as high as the average African-American family. So I think, overall, I think he was obviously a mistake. I don't know if I'd call that racism. I think I would call him, just, making a mistake like,
I'm
everyone
gonna
else
go
does.
get chips.
That sounds
There's
like a
massive
good
racist
idea.
in his body, guys. Okay.
No,
So
I
then
said
you
it
could-
first.
so then you
Josh,
could
so-
make
Why
the
are you in
same.
the
So
kitchen?
then you
Why
could
are you in
make
the
the
kitchen making me a sandwich? Why are you in the kitchen making me a sandwich?
So then
Josiah,
all
sorry.
we could make the same argument that any questionable thing that anyone says could be deemed as questionable, like unless it's like just straight up blatant racism. But
Obviously,
True.
like
I
time
absolutely
is
do.
a factor.
I agree with that. I mean, I think we have to look at
no,
that very
I
carefully.
definitely see where you're coming from, where it's a mistake and it's a fact that white families have an
Yeah.
average higher.
Yeah. I
net
think
worth.
what he was trying to say is, and I mean, I think he's totally correct. I mean, it's kind of a simple statement to make, but that obviously, people from lower incomes absolutely are just as achievable as, higher income. So, I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
So, I mean, I don't,
But
he messed up.
the standpoint that a lot of people come from when they say that quote is racist is that he didn't have, like, when they said they're just as bright as white. It's like, so who are you automatically referring to as poor?
Well, I think
poor people, you typically think of black people. I don't think it's controversial.
It's the same reason that Trump said laziness is a trait in blacks.
Didn't
Never
say
said
it.
that. Never
Didn't
said
say
that.
it.
He did
Sorry.
Never said that.
False
Kim
quote. I
Jong-un
know
is
it's
dead.
used a lot. It's used a lot, but he actually didn't say that.
Brandon Wong's in here now.
Never said that.
Where's B. Wong?
His name is Wongers. Wongers parentheses RHH.
Wait, is he in here? Is B Wong in here?
Kim Jong-un
Shit, I was gonna say
is
something. But
dead.
He's not dead. He's not dead.
Is he in
Definitely not dead.
We don't know.
Why are
We
we
don't know. He
trusting?
could-
Why are we trusting
No, it was
information out of
rumored.
North
It was
Korea?
rumored
Someone
this
explain
morning,
this to me.
but
This is information from Japan.
Is it?
From Japan?
It
How
was
is Japan
TMZ.
gonna know?
No, dude, it
Is
was
he
like
in
the prime minister of China's niece that said it.
No,
Okay, well,
there's reports of him
lot
being
of
dead, but it says that he is
fucking
reportedly dead now. Go to
Reportedly.
The only report that I saw was that he was reportedly in a vegetative state.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I agree
that's
with Josh.
brain
This
dead,
is-
right?
I
So
ju-
you're
all-
functionally dead.
All I want to say is this is irrelevant because Kim Jong Un being alive or dead is basically irrelevant to the North Korean state. If he dies, someone else is just going to step up and take his exact
Yeah,
place.
but I
and
feel
do
like if he
literally
dies,
exactly what he's
it
going
might
to be doing.
if he dies, it might inspire them to start a revolution or something because they'll see that
Oh,
he's
no.
not a god.
Rest in
Or,
peace.
or not, or they'll
And
see it
no,
as like a failure on their part because they are indoctrinated to believe they are like part of the state, and like if anything happens to their leader, it's literally their fault. I mean, they're like he has such hold on control. I feel like they're just gonna blame themselves for the death of their leader because apparently they didn't please him enough or something like that. I mean, it's incredible.
See what happens to the surgeon that performed the.
There
op-
isn't.
Yes.
Can you guys turn
Probably
on
is
chat? I
Tori,
wanna put the
you are
link.
correct. He could very well
If you guys turn
completely
on the
be.
chat, I'll put the link.
If a surgeon failed to perform surgery on Kim Jong Un properly, chances are he's gonna no longer be alive.
Completely, I agree.
The reason why he had trouble performing surgery was because he doesn't typically perform surgery on obese people.
Australia has her hand up again. I think she has something else to say. What's going on?
Sure, why not?
The thing is with North Korea is that we got to make sure that whoever takes over, Kim Jong, dead or alive or whatever's going on with him, is that the problem is with China, because North Korea is like a gateway to China. So if China is able to take over North Korea, then there's a massive problem because right now America and North Korea are pretty close. Like they're on good terms, and nothing's really wrong. And the thing is, China wants world domination, which I think everyone knows. So we just got to make that whoever takes over is like his sister or something, or that make sure China doesn't come and take in and go over because it's going to ruin everything. Because North Korea's got all the missiles and bombs and crap. So
Can I add something to your thing? So I talked about this with my family, and I was thinking because I'm pretty sure we all know Kim Jong Un's a little interesting.
Yeah,
For sure.
Kim Jong Un was the goat.
So I'm
Facts.
curious to see what if this whole thing is a stunt
Hold
done
on.
by him? You feel
Hold on as well.
to make him think that he is that their country's weak right now. You know what I mean? For them to start because they're very easy to trigger as a country. So I feel because they can play their media however they want to play it. If you I just always wonder about that stuff. I think of the other side, if they're trying to plan a military attack, I hope they wouldn't because that's terrible to say someone died. Which I mean,
They would never. They rely on the West for foreign aid to build their military.
Completely.
Exactly.
If they tried anything, it'd be over in a week, probably.
I wouldn't be surprised if they went out and said that he died from coronavirus or something. Really, just accumulate the numbers for that.
Well, the issue with that is in order to have mutually assured destruction work, you have to have competent people on both sides. The issue I have is I fail to acknowledge, and I don't know if you do, that Kim Jong-un or any other leader is a rational, person who really, is going to think about the well-being of his people. So we'll have to see
I'm
what
not
happens.
saying he's a good guy, and I'm not defending him. Most definitely.
No, I didn't think so. I just someone said it'd be over in 1 second. And you're absolutely right. I just I'm not sure that actually matters to them.
I think it gives China a gateway into just world domination. If he does die because he's keeping ties with America and Trump, that he is keeping it there because China just hates everyone.
I mean, I hope China doesn't. China's got a lot of shit to figure out before they try to do world domination. But
Yes.
Not really. China just opened its first military base abroad in Djibouti.
And
their first
Djibouti.
And their
China
first
must
pandemic.
open their borders and let people who are healthy travel, and then let them back in. Now they're blaming America for their spike in numbers again. Do you really just just make it up?
I think if we have
But,
citizens, trapped overseas, I mean, I think we should at least. I don't know. I mean, they have families here. You got to think of it that way. At least let them come home and quarantine for fucking.
Well,
3
that
weeks
was
or
the
whatever.
issue.
They weren't
That was the
testing
main issue
properly
with the
upon
quarantine.
arrival.
Completely. There
But
was
it's
not
not-
there. Well, there was also not an expectation that these people would quarantine or do anything. So I think we're taking a bunch of people back into this country, which I think was the right move. You can't be stranding foreign citizens abroad, but I think they definitely should have been tested and told that they should have quarantined.
I mean,
They
if they
should let
test
citizens
negative,
come back in.
Completely.
Also,
Totally.
provisions to
fuck,
allow
this is
for
gonna be a big
travel
one.
back into the United States after the Chinese travel ban is more than just American citizens. We let high influence Chinese nationals still re-enter the United States, even if they
Yeah,
have
that was
like
an issue.
no legal claim to our country. So like I think the statistic is 40,000 people still came into the United States from
Correct,
China after China's travel ban. I mean our
After
travel ban
travel
on
ban.
China.
Here in Australia, we're letting all citizens and residents of the country back into Australia. And I think that's the only way to go about it. So I can't leave my country unless let's say I live somewhere else and they want me back, they send me back, then I can leave. But apart from that, we can't leave, we can't do anything, which is one thing coming is cargo and shipping, and that's all they're doing. And I think that's all you can do.
Yeah, for sure.
Your input again. All right, who are we going to next? Let's see.
Hey, Josh.
Hey, Brandon. Hey, token Chinese kid.
Yeah.
Ruby Skull, I'm gonna go ahead and unmute you. I think you have something to say, and your background is really cool.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you very well. What's going on?
All right. So I don't know if anyone's seen the video, but there's a video. I forget. White House. They were saying like everyone in the room was vaccinated anyway, and you've seen that?
Yeah, it's okay.
No, go ahead.
You're like a kite.
So basically, God.
It was something my friend sent me. I didn't know.
Wait, go ahead and like finish your explanation. I want to hear it from your perspective.
All right. So I feel like obviously they're lying about like what's happening with this whole coronavirus thing because they're taking deaths not really related to it. Like they could have like symptoms of it, but they could technically not have it. There's people that have died from either like heart attacks or something, and they could have had symptoms of it and had a death counter. And they're saying, "Oh, everyone quarantine, everyone stay inside," but like if you look it up, it's not that hard to do. Quarantine, obviously it's for the sick. You don't quarantine healthy people. And I feel like
So
that's the point of quarantine.
Yeah, I just want to dispel the rumor about this video. Right? So if you like watch the press briefings daily, which probably you don't, like it's literally a waste of time, but I do every day. And in this specific situation, it was two reporters, John Roberts and Doug Mills. And John Roberts is a correspondent for Fox, right? And Doug Mills is a photographer for the New York Times. And like they have like daily banter or whatever. They're always like talking to each other and like making jokes. But these claims were just like completely sarcastic, like making fun of the whole "it's a hoax" thing. And like whoever was watching it live decided to clip it so that there was no context surrounding the situation, so that they could make it seem like it was a ploy by the mainstream media to fake a whole virus.
That makes sense. Yeah. And actually, I have a question. So I wanted to get your opinion. Donald Trump talks a lot about how, like either it's like CNN is fake news or a lot of people like to lie. And I wanted to get your opinion. What do you think if he's going to do anything? Do you think Trump's going to do anything about like free speech censoring and stuff like that?
Absolutely not. No, he's not going to do anything.
Not the slightest.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it's political suicide, but
he would not censor like the First Amendment.
I mean, he'd have to censor himself, man. I mean, that dude's the king of free speech.
I mean, like the speech part.
According to my I side with thing, I expected this coming out of it because I took the I side with test, and I expected this coming out of it because I know what I believe. I'm very big on the Constitution.
Same.
So I'm huge on the Constitution. So the moment that anyone infringes my constitutional rights, done. So
but
it's absolutely wrong to censor free speech. Now, when it comes down to it, like there's obviously downsides to free speech because when you allow free speech, that means that you're publicly allowed to be racist and homophobic and transphobic and all this bad stuff. But that's just something that you have to deal with because not allowing that would be a suppression of free speech.
Yeah, but
also.
You can't suppress people's own opinions, and yeah, it's gonna suck being called all this shit, but sometimes you have to realize, would you rather be able to say this shit or would you rather have to worry about what you have to say? Like I would much rather have someone call me a slur all the time than me not be able to say like "fuck you, bitch." Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Love you.
I totally agree that they can't
No.
suppress your First Amendment
Yeah.
rights. Why a lot of people come here
Yeah.
because countries suppress people's
All right,
speech.
chat. We're
like-
gonna.
The issue with
I'm
this
getting a little tired of this,
entirely
so we're
is
gonna
the fact
thank
that
you, Big Money
and
Waichi,
people
for
are
that
pushing
TikTok
for like
link.
hate
So
speech laws and stuff
we're
like
gonna
that is even though you might
we're gonna
think it
try
might
that
be a
out
good idea
instead.
right now
All
to
right,
say, oh my
so
gosh, you can't,
hold
you know,
on.
call someone the
And if that's
N-word,
terrible,
you
if
know,
that ends, then we'll go
fly
back.
the swastika
But
or something like that is if the government has the ability to take away that person's right to do what they want, they also have the ability to take away what you want to do. And exactly if the tides could turn and if, you know, you feel that, you know, your cause is not being represented, you have a government that is not representing you and, you know, every
Mhm.
single citizen of this country. So that's just
Exactly. That's why I personally think, even though I think it's really messed up, I accept the fact that my government is okay with people dressing in white cloaks and burning crosses, because if that being banned means the fact that I can't pridefully say whatever I want to say or represent whatever I want to present could be banned, then
I
that's not
also
okay.
think the big problem with hate speech is that it's too generalized. You can't just say hate speech. Anything could be considered hate speech under it. Like you have to like censor it. Like there's people I know at my school, a teacher who believes that hate speech is like bullying the kids hate speech, which is not true.
Yo, Big
Okay,
Money
yeah, it's fucking
Wagey,
shitty,
do
but
you know
it's
what
not
the
hate
account name
speech.
is? Because that link
So
is
I think that is way too broad
404.
of a spectrum too. Also,
Yeah.
like,
And a huge thing about this too is it has to do with the fact that that person has the right to say it, but you have every right to disavow them with every single bone in your body to just say they're full
Yeah.
of it. You're completely wrong. And I think that's the beauty of it is we can shout them down. They can continue talking, but hopefully our message will prevail and people won't even listen to them, even though they have a voice to spread what they want to say. This is a quote I love. You have a right to say whatever you want, but you don't have a right to be heard. People don't have to listen to you if they feel that your message is not correct. And I think that society will, you know, blend that out.
Absolutely.
100% agree. Because, you know, if I hear a Nazi person's or a Nazi trying to like spread their ideals on me, I don't have to listen to them and follow them. Like I can just say, fuck you, dog. I'm not listening to you. I'm listening to
There you
what
go.
I believe. Like,
Absolutely right. Does that do it for you, man?
Well, one more quick thing. With that being said, do you think Trump's going to do anything for those who are being censored?
Who's being censored?
Elaborate, yeah.
No, I understand. Like you mean like people who are being deplatformed, right? Off.
Yeah, like no reasons. There's like,
So
you know, people
basically,
on Twitter are getting banned
yeah.
for reasons
So
that didn't
Trump
do.
has no ability to stop that sort of censorship because one, it's not a governmental censorship, right?
It's private
It's,
business.
It's at the
It's
discretion of a
private.
business, right? So
Just like
Completely.
you can't
a
really
private
regulate-
entity gets to decide who they platform and who they don't. It's just, I
All
guess,
right,
like
chat. We're gonna
Nazis and
pause
rapers are
this.
real mad that Twitter isn't like part of the Third Reich or whatever,
Hold
so
on,
it doesn't let them speak their beliefs. But like, at the end of the day, it's their decision. You can't really regulate them.
It's like
Yeah.
you can't really take away like private schools' right to teach religion.
They don't have they're not in it to seek, you know, this is going to sound gay, but they're not in it to seek truth, you know, they're not in it to find out what's really going on, or else they would think about what's being said, and they would wonder, you know what,
Tell me if this is
I
more
don't have
interesting,
an I
because
know
if
that
this
I've
isn't,
been in
we
that
can go
position
back,
before
but
where I
it's
don't have
one
an
or the
argument
other.
for that. You know, that is kind of a hole in my worldview, right? And I have to adjust a few things around. Or at least contemplate it a little bit. But when someone fires back with, "Oh, you must be a Nazi," that just shows you're in it for the brand. You know, you're in it to make yourself look good or just not seem wrong all the time. And you know, what do I think? I'll say this as a viewer. What do I think of somebody that is sort of putting off that message of, you know, you're just sort of in this to gain a following or, you know, look good or not be wrong? I definitely don't trust the opinions that you're saying. I'll say that.
So just tell me if this is better. If it isn't, we can just go back to the Zoom stream. But
sorry, I'm trying to keep up with this a little bit.
But you know, if you guys like this more, then I
yeah, Nick Wetton, he is black. He is Mexican and black. So it's a really odd accusation to make in the first place. But yes, you know, so that was, I'll say like this, oh man, I had a video I was going to kind of put out about this, but Nathanicus kind of said it better. So the guy whose account, I think I said this already, but whose account was the last one, Nathanicus, him and I were actually talking, and it was like, for the last year, you kind of got this. I personally got this feeling of like being this sort of lone man on the hill,
Right.
this lone
The,
soldier on the hill, taking shots from both sides.
Strongholds up.
You know, and the conservatives, they're like,
tell me which
socialism
one.
sucks. It's like,
I don't
what
know.
about immigration? You know,
They're
what about these other
both
problems that we're
mediocre,
facing? What about social degeneracy? What about, you know, all of these other leftist sort of pushes that we're seeing that you're not addressing at all? And then liberals, obviously, they're going to battle you too. So it's taking shots from both sides. And then this week, the Groyper army shows up, and it was just in my mind, the thing that I picture is like Stannis Baratheon's, you know, army coming to save the day, you know, on the hill, the battle of the bastards, you know, and it was just this massively relieving feeling that there were finally kind of some people who understood social conservatism,
actually,
which
you know
is
what?
which
No,
is
screw
dead.
this.
I mean,
We're
at this
gonna-
point in the mainstream, and you see why. I mean, as soon as it pops up.
All right, we're gonna switch back to the other one. So clearly,
I was talking to like one of the
if
farmer
anything
guys who was
interesting
in one of these
happens,
Zoom
though,
calls.
please tell me,
And
right?
he said, "Oh well, we can't stop like legal immigration because a ton of farm workers are migrants from like Latin America, South
Yeah, that's the
America,
dumb
and
part.
we need
I
them
already agree
because
with
they
them,
take
so we already
such a
know
low
everything there is
wage
to
that
know.
without that prices would go up." So what is you guys' take on that? Are you willing to take jobs away from Americans just so that people can get paid less money for
no one's
hard
taking away
work?
the jobs. The
No
jobs
one's
are
taking
already
away
there.
jobs.
Legal citizens are Americans, so that we're not taking
No,
away
no,
jobs.
no. First off, let's dispel this rumor. Let's dispel this rumor that these are jobs that Americans want in the first place. The reason that these industries are subsidized is
I'm pretty
because
sure if you're
Americans don't
broke
know
and you're out of a job, you'll
Yeah,
take
that
anything
Zoom
to
meeting,
survive.
by the
But
way.
okay.
Well, then why are there 3 million? Why are there 3
jobs
million
are-
vacant jobs?
Why don't they do it?
Well,
then?
okay, all right, hold on.
Good
So
question, because they don't want to work them, I guess.
if there's like if there's a vacant job in a certain occupation and you're out of work but you can't do that occupation, you're obviously not gonna be able to take that job. So it's a really dumb argument. No offense.
Okay, but no, it's
But
not, because
75% of the
open jobs, meaning
farming
that no
industry,
American
excuse me,
can get
excuse me,
Farmer
excuse me,
requires a lot
excuse
more
me.
skill than any other minimum wage
Excuse me.
job.
Yes. I didn't say it doesn't take skill to be a farmer. What I'm saying is this: there's 3 million farm workers in America, and 75% of them, I can show you the statistics if you want. 75% of them, like where I can show you my source. 70% of them are immigrants, and they make $25,000 a year. So, if 75% of 3 million is 2.25 million, so there's 2.25 million immigrants that are working on jobs that Americans couldn't take. And
Okay,
the
and
response
so
from
No, but
farmers,
are they
hold
immigrants?
on.
Are they immigrants?
They are 75%.
Legal?
75%.
Legal.
Yeah, legal immigrants.
Then it doesn't matter. They're as
Then they
valuable
are-
as
What do you mean it doesn't matter? What do
natural
you mean it
born.
doesn't matter?
They are as valuable as natural born American
Hold on,
citizens.
Let's just get through this logic real quick. If there's
Here's a
10
legal
jobs
immigrant,
open,
and here's
He baited
hold
us.
on. If there's 10 jobs open, right? 10 jobs open. I'm offering 10 jobs, right, to anyone. There's 10 American citizens. They could theoretically take that. Now, if we get more workers in America, immigrants from other countries, there's now 20 workers and there's only 10 jobs. Now, usually immigrants take less pay. The jobs, it's just logic. If they're not taking American
There's not
jobs, they
a
lose jobs
surplus
for
of
the
jobs right now.
Guys, if we let him finish his whole point, this will go faster. So just continue what you were saying.
You guys
20
just keep
jobs,
interrupting.
10
You gotta chill
people.
out.
I mean, I've been trying to talk for the past 50 minutes, and all these dumbasses.
Yeah, but I'm still that's my
Yo,
question. So
shut
why don't you
up,
just calm
woman.
down a little bit?
Now listen, if you get in here,
I'm calm. I'm
you don't want to say your
Tell them more respectful there.
Yeah.
All right, just
Tone it down.
yeah, you don't want to say you're a groyper because they're probably just gonna immediately kick you. But get in here if you can.
People have a nice wage, right? But the fact of the matter is that the immigrants that are coming into America aren't refugees.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
No, they're still legal citizens, though.
Yeah, they're a citizen from another country is no less
Bruh,
valuable than
he
a
just
citizen
kicked-
of our country currently.
But wait,
Not to
Yeah,
mention, it's
free
like
speech.
it's kind of flipped, right? It's like there's 20 jobs but only 15 Americans.
Someone's got to call him out on it. Who's
I
gonna
mean,
be
the
nice?
matter is that
One of
there's
us
more
will have to
vacant
call him out on that.
Then people.
these
One of us.
but legal
I want you guys to know he's not in the call.
Oh, okay,
no,
I
it's
would
just
think
like,
so.
let's say even if we entertained his worldview, right? That like if we stop the immigration in hopes of Americans taking jobs, what happens is Americans don't take these jobs. There's been study after study done. I could send like a Seattle Times link. I could send a Merlot Farming link. What happens is nobody fills these vacancies once you deport these individuals, and your food prices just go up, and no American gets a job.
Correct.
Those jobs. are
Josh,
working
do
in
you want to
fields with
try out the rule?
pesticides, and they're risking their lives. It's disgusting.
You heading out?
If
All
working-
right, bye, Jess. I'll see
Thank
you
Tori.
next weekend, man.
Josh, Josh, yeah, okay, that's cool. Christian's in here. Whoa.
So I just wanted to say that, like, that's like, if you let people come in, like, that are from other countries, then that's not fair to the people who, like, came in the right way, because you have to pay, like, they pay a lot of money to come in the correct way, and they, because my dad's an immigration lawyer, so, like, I can see how much, like, they work towards it, and I don't really think that it's fair that people can just come into our country illegally and not have to pay anything, but then
They do pay taxes.
Okay, but the people who want to come legally have to pay so much money and spend so much. It's not really fair to those people.
But also, the people who aren't coming don't have that money and don't have the funds, and yeah, it's shitty.
It should not cost over 30,000 and over 2 visits.
Listen, I'm a legal immigrant to the United States, right? I spent like $20,000 naturalizing and becoming a U.S. citizen, and that's a lot of money, right? So I don't want to spend any more money on food prices, right? So if it's not essential that I pay $14 for an apple, I'm not going to. If that could be subsidized by a foreign entity, I'm all for it as a legal immigrant, and it doesn't insult me.
Hey, Elliot, I'm just curious. Would you support the amnesty of these illegal immigrants who would raise wages and then potentially?
Yes, because I would love to have an increase in tax money.
Ladies and gentlemen, the volume is astronomical.
Hey, what just happened?
Yeah, that was weird.
What happened?
I don't know.
But wait, would giving these people amnesty kind of force food prices up?
No.
Well, because then they're given amnesty or like some sort of like citizenship. Well, not necessarily citizenship, but some sort of legal status.
Jaden, glad to see you here. All right.
You already do. I mean, depending on how it works. I mean,
legally have to pay them like the federal minimum wage.
No, I'm talking about like
well,
the
of
illegal
course,
immigrants.
we can have a whole discussion about the minimum wage, but I don't know. I feel that immigrants coming to this country are
that
filling the
monetary
job.
negative would be offset by how much they pay in fiscal taxes every year, right?
Correct.
And furthermore, that would subsidize like our education system and our roads and our infrastructure that's really dying right now. Like I would love to see 11 more million taxpayers.
Yeah.
Like what taxes would they pay? Like income?
Everything. I mean, if they have a house,
Well, they
home,
already pay
property.
sales tax.
They do.
They probably already pay property tax. I
They
think
already
only,
pay
like-
income. They already pay income tax.
Yeah, well, then what taxes? Like, where would the tax revenue come from? Like, if you were to give them amnesty or legalize them?
I mean, the only one I can think of would be
Ooh, can we
property
talk
tax,
about
unless they're already
churches
paying
and
through
taxes?
a
I think if
landlord.
I don't think that all church bought things should all get a free pass.
I think any religious institution should be taxed.
So if you're working illegally, like
no,
churches can monopolize the literal economy.
Well, it is. They can. My only issue with that, and I'm like the biggest atheist and a believer in separation of church and state. And because I'm a big believer in separation of church and state, I'm not quite sure how I feel about taxing religious institutions, just because a government could practically tax a certain religious institution out of like existence because they don't agree with their policies. So if that were to happen under any sort of administration, that's the only problem I would have with that.
What if they like made a way so they don't disproportionately tax?
I would argue
Sorry.
only tax them if they're for profit.
I mean,
Can
okay.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
I
guys, let
definitely
Tori-
believe in
let
taxing
Tori go.
mega churches.
Just
Okay,
I'm not trying to stop. I think I'm making a little comment. From now on, you're only going to get unmuted if your camera is on.
Oh wait.
All right, Tori,
Can I,
Tori, go. Yes, Tori
finish what I
can
was
go.
trying to say to him, to say
Yeah.
to Oliver. Okay, so how I feel about, I think that the total taxing churches out if a government doesn't agree with them, I think that that's 100% wrong. I think that the religious institute should not be taxed, but I think other properties that they buy, such as churches and or not churches, hospitals, and
Remember, folks, we
other
want
properties
optical
which they let
questions, okay?
other
No Fed
businesses
posting.
operate on, and they make the businesses pay tax. They pay tax and pay them.
sure. Yeah, we've got
which
one
is making,
guy.
giving them a profit.
We've
Which
got Lawrence
I think
John.
hypothetically
Lawrence John
is like
is
helping out a
our
church or
Goiper.
whatever.
He's in
tonight,
here. He didn't take the
whatever.
AF footy
I
off
just think
because
it
they're
gives too much
probably going to
power
kick
to these
you
churches.
if
They
they
can
know you're a
monopolize the
Goiper.
economy, and I think it's too dangerous. But I think as religious institutes should be not be taxed
Yeah.
because the sole reason that government should tax them out of. But I do not think that the other areas that they buy should have a no tax on them.
Well, yeah, it's completely. It also comes down to whether they're profit or nonprofit, and I would agree if they're for profit, absolutely. But I mean, we don't. I mean, nonprofit organizations don't have to currently, pay taxes the same way. So I'm not sure how we would do that. But yeah.
So next person to get unmuted.
I think Bateman boy has been
Let's go with Bateman boy. I've seen it.
I like his stats, dog.
All right. So what's going on, guys? I just want to get a feel for what kind of people I'm talking to here first. So are you all kind of more so left-leaning libertarians, right?
I'm
left-leaning authoritarian.
I'm left libertarian. I'm libertarian. So.
Not like a tanky, very, very centrist left-leaning authoritarian.
Okay.
Libertarian.
I think
Me,
So-
Josh,
Just a
Brandon,
Democrat. I have a
are all on the right.
I have a question right now. So when you look around America right now, right, you see that for the past 30 years, wages have been stagnant, despite the fact that American employees have never been more productive in the history of America. And you guys are sitting here like, oh, well, legal immigration is the deal. They're taking jobs that Americans don't want. Well, is anybody here in university right now besides me or in college?
Christian.
Now, yeah. So I have a question for you. How many of your professors are non-American, non-originally American citizens? How many of those are immigrants?
Oh, actually, I have a microeconomics professor who's from Albania. That's basically it. That's like the only one.
Well,
Pretty cool
I
guy.
guess it depends on if you're going to like a major university or like a smaller.
He's like an
college.
ANCAP though.
I don't
so
really know.
it's a bit of a yikes.
But I know for me, a lot of those professors that I've had, especially if you're in the STEM field in the major university, like a lot of them are foreigners, right? And not only is that creating an issue where, well, those are jobs that American citizens could have, right? And they would gladly.
They are American citizens.
Oh, okay.
Are
I mean,
American citizens.
I mean historical
they're not
American
born here
citizens, not
doesn't mean
people,
after they're
not people. Who
Wait, just let him finish his point. Come on.
And not only that, but I think this instance that I'm talking about can really highlight the fact that these cultural barriers of us and them can cause issues. Because when you think about it, at least for me, a lot of my professors could barely speak English, could barely comprehend the questions I'm asking, and that created a moral negative for me because I'm not accomplishing the best that I could be doing in university because of things getting lost in translation. There's a real world problem in an instance of immigration where a student who's going to university, who's paying a lot of money to do it, right, is losing the ability to be educated as best as they can because of a cultural barrier.
Right.
I disagree.
Can I correct you on something real quick?
Wait, I want
When you
to
say-
respond real quick to that. I
Okay,
disagree. It's just supply and demand, right? Like there's a lack of like professors within the STEM fields, computer science. It is true. There's a reason why we grant these visas to people.
There's plenty of TAs, people in graduate,
TAs are
postgraduate getting their
fundamentally different than
doctorate that could
professors.
easily take those positions. And on top of that, I don't know about your university, but I know at mine, a lot of the students are foreign nationals, and they hike up the prices because they can afford it of universities. University prices in America have increased 500% over the past 20 years. That's insanity. And the reason why is because we've allowed the entire world to go to American universities. We should be giving that kind of access to American citizens first and foremost,
We do.
not foreign nationals.
We do though, like
We
foreign
have so many colleges. That's the other thing. Many
foreign-
countries don't have a lot of colleges. and they
Foreign
don't
students
have
usually
access-
offset the cost of like native-born individuals going to college. That's why they have to pay so much more, like
The
international.
costs are
fees.
insurmountable because they're too blown up because we've created a system, a globalized system where we allow this to happen. It wouldn't be structured like this. Like the university I go to, right, was originally a farmer university for people who wanted to get an agricultural education, right? It started off as a small thing for American citizens. The price of it was not very high, and it was actually subsidized by the federal government too. There are programs where we can highlight allowing for this and focusing on American people, structuring our courses for American citizens, and not allowing foreign nationals to run the show, hike up the price, and artificially inflate the demand. That's what's happening.
Are you a
When
Strasserist?
globalize the system, you offset the demand too much and the supply side. And so when we're talking about stagnant wages for the past 30 years, despite American citizens never being more productive, it's because the supply side of labor has been increasing because we take in more legal immigrants than the next 3 countries combined.
Well, don't you need to look at it proportionally? You can't just say we take in the most.
And even proportionally, we take in approximately 0.3% of our population every year in legal immigrants. That's not even accounting for illegal, right? 0.3%. And then if you conglomerate that over the past 30 years, that's an insurmountable number. It's a big number of people.
So, but like recently, even we've had like stagnation or a decrease in enrollment of international students, and this has been like detrimental to universities because, like I said earlier, they offset the costs, like salary costs and expenses for the university that native-born individuals can't really fulfill because we give them lower tuition rates than we do international students. Like, do you really think international students are paying even comparable amounts of money to like
what they pay is irrelevant to me.
We're also facing an enrollment cliff.
If the costs are insurmountably high, then they should be making programs where they reduce the costs. But should be focusing on the American people first and foremost. And I like how you highlighted that point, but you completely ignored the stagnant wages point. It's not just
because you're rambling on, so I have to go.
Because those are that's a non sequitur.
It's within every industry in the United States of America that wages have been stagnant for the past 30 years. And we're not just getting low-skilled labor, we're getting high-skilled laborers too. That's why I brought up the professors. We're getting doctors, and all of these people compete with American citizens for those jobs. That's how the labor pool works. And if you want, you can go ahead and read a book called We Wanted Workers, We Got People. A lot of the people that come in here, both legally and illegally, actually have a burden on the American system, whether it's our healthcare system, right? Our financial system, right? And the wealth that you think they generate for this country, which is quote unquote $14 billion or whatever, if you actually look at the costs that these people incur when they come here on the healthcare system, on the government, that actually negates any benefit that we get from them. And I think it comes up to like $50 billion or something like that. It's practically nothing.
Okay, so the
nice.
big thing with like doctors and stuff. I mean, I could argue that. I mean, there's plenty of American doctors.
Wait,
I'm sure there's foreign doctors.
We have the highest paid doctors in the world.
My doctor barely speaks English, but I think you can argue that if these people are more educated, I mean, I'd rather have a doctor that knows what he's doing.
Wait, so like the point that you brought about like the stagnation of wages in these specific fields, I don't know if that's inherently a causation or correlation due to immigration, because
since Reaganomics, when we've been opening up
this doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? There could be
moving away from America, and we've still been importing people, which means, by the way, we have a less amount of low-skilled jobs and a more amount of low-skilled laborers, right? So you increase the pool of labor while increasing the options of jobs. Of course, wages are going to but we don't need these people. We have 338 million people in the United States of America that could.
No, this is so bad. Look at the labor force, amigo. Okay, don't just say we have 338 million people in America.
Okay, yeah, the labor force.
Two things on that point.
5 million.
Two things on that point. So like wage stagnation doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? Like you can't just automatically attribute all of these problems to immigration, right? Like there could be an infinite amount of other factors like income inequality rising as a result of like favoring corporations.
That's why I specified the supply side of labor. It's very obvious that if you increase the supply of labor, labor costs will decrease because you have a higher amount of pool. People become expendable. If you're working at Walmart and you ask for a raise, what's stopping them from firing you and hiring someone else? Because the labor pool is so high, they don't need you. You're expendable.
But this doesn't really like hold up empirically because like earlier you cited like STEM fields, right? Like that was your original point that a lot of your professors are like STEM related, right? And they're foreigners and you can't understand. I was just giving a real world example
of how the cultural divide can also impact American citizens.
Okay, but these are still industries that need to be subsidized, right? That Americans aren't going into proportionally to the demand that we need for them. Like a lot of STEM fields.
Do you know the average acceptance rate of a university in the United States of America? It's less than like 80%. That means
because there's so many universities.
Of people, that other 20%, if they didn't have foreign nationals competing, right, they could have gotten in.
What?
Yeah,
that's not how it works.
Yeah,
yes, it is. If the pool of applicants decreases, right? If the pool of applicants,
okay, but if they don't have the required GPA, they're not getting it.
And they have a certain, if they have a certain allotment, especially for public universities, it's just an allotment of people. Right? They say, okay, well, the freshman class is going to be 12,000 people. Whoever signs up, they sign up, and then we get the 12,000. The fact is, foreign nationals, right, compete for those slots with American citizens.
Did you go to college? That's just not how that works, Steve.
Yes, it is. That's how it works at public universities in the United States of America. I'm in.
So
a
in
public
the United
university.
States, we're facing what is called an enrollment cliff, where the amount of like students who are enrolling in colleges is decreasing, and it's largely fucking up that funding. So if anything, allowing more foreign nationals to join these colleges increases the number of like students.
Yeah, also, if you
and
have the
wealth that these. Wait,
GPA
Ashton, please let me finish. It increases the amount of wealth and capital that these kind of universities have to maintain their operations.
Is wealth the end all be
economics
all of
scale.
everything? Is wealth the end all be all? Do you feel more wealthy than the average American citizen 50 years ago?
But it goes beyond wealth. Because like,
How would I know how I?
Wait. It goes.
What I'm saying is, if you actually look,
Let
at
Elias
the
speak.
data, the real wages.
Dude, you gish gallop so much.
1953.
I have a counterpoint for everything you say, but you just keep on listing things
Okay, go
so
ahead.
that you try to
Go ahead.
overwhelm.
Counterpoint. I'll silence myself.
Before you go, I really hate to interrupt this conversation because it's going really well, but I'm going to go ahead and make Ben the host because I have to leave.
No, Josh, make me the host. Ben's not even
No,
fucking
don't do
Make
that.
Aubrey the host.
Don't make Aubrey the dictator.
All right, I'll make Aubrey host. Fine. Oh shit, he didn't change.
Did you guys know that in 2018, 8 out of 9 all shark attacks happened in some form of body of water?
All right, let Elias speak now.
What?
All right, everyone shut up.
Just because
I love you guys. Peace out.
Josh.
Bye.
So just because you inherently like don't feel wealthier, right, doesn't mean that there won't be negative monetary effects to the fact that like industries that need to be subsidized are not being subsidized. So if we allowed for like more American individuals to go into these colleges and like put more of a societal pressure onto Americans going into specific fields that they're really not like well equipped for, what would result is a shortage of labor in these specific fields that are currently being subsidized for that exact reason, and the monetary effect would also end up going on to you in like an increase of healthcare costs or of consumer goods such as technology, because Silicon Valley isn't being subsidized by immigrant labor. So you're looking at this very one-dimensionally, but there's a lot more factors than just do I feel wealthier or not.
Okay, Aubrey, can you unmute him because he got muted in that?
Also, I think a lot of studies show that like immigrant labor doesn't have an effect on like the average labor cost of like an individual. I saw that somewhere.
Yeah, the man's needs to be unmuted.
Aubrey, unmute Bateman boy.
How's everyone's quarantine going?
Good.
Okay,
Ashton.
well, here's the thing. First of all, that's not a subsidy, right? It's not a subsidy, so I don't know why you're using that term. Secondly, again, they already did the study on this. Of the 14 billion that these people bring in net revenue, right? If you actually look at the costs of them coming here and the costs that they burden the healthcare system with, which, by the way, if you have a more pool of people that require healthcare, that's going to affect that too. It's only $50 billion. We injected more every day into the overnight repo market for the past month and a half. It's like a drop in the bucket.
I don't know, dude. I don't know about this.
Unmute Devin.
Just like based off what I've seen from my research, like if you don't allow for immigrant labor to how do I fucking explain this? If you don't allow for immigrant labor to be in these specific fields so that we meet the needs for labor, especially high skill, you can't get a high skill worker overnight, right? These need to be like the demand for these needs to be met via a third party. And oftentimes like in agriculture or in STEM fields or in medical fields, we need to have immigrants fulfilling these roles because Americans just simply don't do them. Like earlier,
we should be investing in American people more.
That's
what we should
they
be.
are
American people. We shouldn't have to offset.
They are Americans.
Okay, no, I have to
That's
clarify
exactly
something.
what I mean.
When
I mean people who actually have a connection to this country, not just moved here. Okay,
but Bateman boy.
Like I don't know if that works. Wait.
Yeah,
finish your point.
It's America first all over again.
Like I don't know if that's like historically true because like we had that huge learn to code campaign in the early 2000s, right? And we put huge societal pressure on individuals to pursue computer science degrees and to go into STEM fields. And in the long term, we still had to have in the long term, we still had to have immigrants fulfill these jobs because people were just not coming. Like despite the societal pressure and the encouragement,
I got you, Devin.
not fulfilling these roles that we wanted.
Do you believe in incentives?
Yes.
Elaborate. What do you mean by incentives?
I'm saying generally, do you believe in the concept of incentives, incentivizing?
Yes.
People, right? Okay. The fact of the matter is, if people aren't fulfilling that job, right, then the wage that job will pay will increase, and then people will go to meet that demand because they see high wages.
So we have those high
How can
wages
people meet?
being
How can
paid.
people
Not
meet
only
that
that,
demand
but if
if
you're
like
saying, oh, the deficit of Americans, right, who are not properly educated, and we need to offset that with foreign nationals. No, we shouldn't be doing that. We should be looking at the root causal agents of why Americans aren't fulfilling those jobs, even if that were the case.
So, you want to have
which
more
it's not.
babies? Just tell
No,
everyone.
but I think the
mute Devin, please.
Yeah,
it's the pursuance of
Yeah, who keeps unmuting him?
I said let me
Josiah.
finish first.
Devin, stop making brownies over here. Let's fucking get him muted.
I think that this assumption that a pursuance of a career is just founded upon its wage, right, and how much monetary benefit it'll be to you,
That's
isn't
not what I'm
like
saying.
real. But
It's
you
one
see,
of the- it's one
there's
of the
literally a
many
lack
incent- it's
of
one
like
the
college
many
majors for like
incentives-
STEM.
It's one of the many for incentives for why people pursue a job. I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but you have to admit the wage or salary that a job will pay directly correlates to some sort of incentive to become one of those jobs.
but I don't think it's at a high
And again,
high
though,
enough scale
the deficits in the American education system are not a reason for us to employ foreign nationals. We should be working on fixing the American education
So,
system.
how do you think we should solve that?
Incentives.
Fix the education system. If you honestly believe that
Oh.
Americans aren't meeting these jobs because they're not well educated, then that's a
No, I
fault
don't
of the
think it's not.
education
I don't
system
think
of
it's
the
because they're
United
not
States of
well educated.
America.
I just think it's because they simply don't want to, right?
That's not true.
How do you
you
can't
know
know that for certain?
You can't know that.
Well, he can't know that either. I mean, it's a nonsense.
No, but like earlier, I had given you that example of the Learn to Code campaign that just abysmally failed.
Yeah, we gave them opportunity and they didn't take
campaigning
it.
create any real incentives?
The entire country was pressured to take some sort of, coding thing to go into STEM fields.
I mean, data
Clearly it
science
didn't
majors
work.
and whatnot, they're already like underrepresented relative to the demand.
Well, I mean,
of the market.
even now, at least where I am, computer science majors are fucking everywhere. But
there's still not enough. Right?
Like half of my, class of 600, half of them went into computer science majors. That's absurd.
Quite.
Well, I think
And
my
another thing
issue
about
here
like
is. Sorry, you go.
another thing about like the low wage thing, right? Like you're attributing it to immigration, but in reality, you can probably attribute most of that productivity gains to technology. And so, when technology increases, the skill required to do a certain labor decreases. So therefore, the value that worker brings is decreased as well. So, I mean, like this idea that like immigration is like exists within a vacuum and is causing these negative
it's a
economic
multitude
effects.
of factors. I'm not saying it doesn't happen I'm not saying it happens in a vacuum, but actually wages should increase as productivity increases.
Well, not if that productivity is attributed to increases in technology, right?
Yeah, it's increased. Yeah, yeah. And what did we see during the Industrial Revolution, right? I mean, it wasn't up until the 1970s when we created this globalization policy under Reaganomics or whatever that wages started to stagnate despite despite the average productivity of the labor increasing.
Well, wages during the Industrial Revolution were exceptionally low until the government stepped in.
Is because despite technology advancements, which by the way means that we require less labor, we're importing more labor. How does that make sense? As technology increases and we become increasingly, it's increasingly like automated processes. Why are we importing more laborers?
Also, sorry,
that doesn't make any sense.
Great point.
You didn't even think about what you were saying.
Great point. Whoever's host, Bateman boy has been talking a lot. Really, valid points and everything. But a lot of people want to talk.
Yeah, I'll mute myself.
Also, I need to correct you on something. I need to correct you on something.
You can keep talking, but if anybody else wants to talk too, like we should start unmuting them. Unmute me, please. She kind of, honestly, you need to change your name.
Just want to correct you on something really quick. When you say American, what you're trying to say is Western European, because I'm a second generation immigrant. My mom came in here at 15 years old from Cuba, and you are no more than American than me. You are more American.
I mean the blacks who have been here for generations. I mean the Latinos.
The blacks. So what makes them so much more American then?
What makes it so much more American is we already have a large pool of people here. It's not 1922 anymore. There's 338 million of us. It's a different situation. During the industrialization period, right, there was en masse new creations of jobs daily that the pool of people actually could not meet in any reasonable regard.
Sick. Whoever hosts is unmute Australian conservative.
Situation that we're living in. There's 338 million of us.
But you are no more American.
327 last
You are
time I
no
looked.
more
As we
American
become-
than me.
as
Bateman,
You are
boy,
Western
God,
European,
dude.
but you are no more American.
Okay, guys,
Bateman,
nobody
Bateman,
cares.
can I say
Australian
something?
conservatives,
I'm
if they
Eastern.
want to talk.
Look at me. Look at my mustache. Do I
Bateman
look
boy,
Western
can I say
European?
something,
I'm
please?
Eastern European.
Excuse me.
Okay,
I
let
wanna
her
say something.
talk.
I'm Australian, right? Now I want to go to America, and when I'm to get an education,
Then come.
and I want to study political science. Now that doesn't make me any less American.
No.
If I go there and I get what's it called? A citizenship. What's it make me? Why am I taking away someone else's education? Who's to
Because
say that
apparently you are
I'm
less
no
valuable than
man.
another
How
American,
am
which
I
I
less
can't seem
valuable
to
than
understand.
American? I
I'm not
speak
saying
English.
you're
I
less
study English.
I'm not
I will
saying that
learn,
these people
and I
are
will then
any
become
less
American.
value.
What's there to
Not what he's
say?
talking
This is a
about.
Right, but I think
misrepresentation of what I'm
if you're more
saying.
educated, if you're more
The world we're
qualified,
living in
yeah,
now
you
is
should be able to get
fundamentally
something done.
different than when we were importing a lot of migrants before. And again, I'm not saying Western European. I'm saying American citizens who have been here for a couple generations now. We need to start focusing on the fact that we're increasing the labor pool for no good reason, as the jobs are going to start decreasing as we become
Here's a pure example.
increasingly
I have a pure example.
become
Look at
increasingly artificially automated and everything like that. A lot of jobs are going to be decreasing, even within the STEM fields. They're programming AI systems
Here's
now.
a prime example. I have a prime example for you. I live in Australia, multiculturalism. Every second person next door to me is a different race to me, is a different ethnic background. I'm Greek formerly, and I'm Australian. There is nothing wrong in the country that I'm living now that people are taking other people's jobs. There is nothing wrong with
Really?
that.
There's not that problem in Australia?
No. Because
Okay.
we all don't look at each other
let's
as someone who's American or Australian or just solid. We look at each
Let's
other.
look at mining in Australia or housing in Australia.
The only
What's
reason
happening to
mining in
mining
Australia
and
is a
housing in
problem
Australia?
due to our Indigenous Australians and our government. Yes, our government isn't the best, and our politicians are far from very good. But
I understand
if
your
you look at
politicians
the
are far from
jobs,
very good, but is it not a cogent point to say the Chinese immigrants coming into Australia are buying up all your mines and all your property and artificially inflating the prices?
I live here. I see it firsthand. I see it all. It's not
Well,
the
then,
immigrants
is
that
that
are the
not
problem.
accurate?
It is the Indigenous Australians. And I'm not saying there is a problem with that. I'm not saying that they're bad people. I'm
No,
trying
I'm
to
talking
emphasize
about
the
the
fact
Chinese
that
buying
immigrants,
out.
which
talking
make
about
up
the
our population,
Chinese
which make up
immigrants
around
out
the
part-
5 million, if not
Guys,
plus,
one at a
25
time.
million population of Australia make up. The immigrants aren't the problem. My grandfather was an immigrant.
Well,
It didn't make a difference. He worked for his money. He did what he had to do. Immigrants don't make a difference. It's legal or illegal. I'm not a fan of illegal immigrants myself, but they are not making a change. They're not taking other people's jobs away. Because there is so much more jobs and the employment rate has been boosting in America due to Trump and his team and everything. What's it to say taking away the jobs? And in the college scenario, you are giving more
okay,
people
let
opportunity.
Bateman talk. Yeah, it was a spiel.
I didn't want to interrupt you, so I muted myself. If I get to interrupting, I'll mute myself just so the person can finish their point fully. Here's what I'm trying to say. And here's a real world example from Australia. Your mines, your precious metal mines, your housing, all being bought up by foreign nationals that become citizens of Australia. The Chinese, they bought out almost all of your production capacity for your mines, and they're artificially inflating the housing costs for Australian citizens, and that negatively impacts you. You're going to tell me that you haven't noticed that the prices of housing in Australia is getting a little ridiculous, because even the New York Times is now covering what's happening to you guys because
the housing prices in it. Okay, first of all, it's the dollar between American and Australian. Very different things.
I'm aware of purchasing parity. Thank you.
If you look at your houses that you buy there, don't quote me on it, but like around $300,000, if not plus. Our median house price is around $1.2 million. That's just for a medium house townhouse in a normal suburban suburb, right? That is just standard. It's different.
It's because your housing markets are being bought out by Chinese who are conglomerating power in Australia.
It's actually 800,000
and they're actually creating something called the new whatever trail, the new opium trail, or whatever they call it, the Silk Road, the new Silk Road. They're buying out stuff in Africa, Australia, and New Zealand. And how they do it in Australia and New Zealand is they become citizens in your country and they buy up all your assets.
And there is nothing wrong with that because they're immigrants. They are coming in legally. They are doing what they can.
This is what I'm saying. Yes, even legal immigration is a hazard, especially in Australia. You guys are
How is
getting
it a
priced out.
Okay, let's forget about Australia. Let's talk about the U.S. because the majority of us in the U.S. How is it an actual hazard in the U.S., man?
It's
Exactly,
the,
there
it's
is
the
no natural
same
hazard.
thing. It's the same thing that's going on in Australia. Okay, so let's bring up the professors again in America.
If you look at,
right,
sorry,
these
if you
foreign
look in
national
the
professors
US,
that become American citizens.
Let
Hold
him
on,
finish.
hold on, and stay here as professors, right? You know, you want to know the moral hazard that causes? Half of these Chinese employees here in America that are doing research end up sending that all back to China. They steal
ask
our
a-
research.
Okay. I would.
Ask a
How
genuine
is there? Are
question.
there any
Can I ask a
sources
genuine
that prove that they
You
are
can
any
read it
less
in the New
American
York
than we are?
Do you guys
It
like
creates
Chinese
moral
food?
hazards.
Hold on.
Do you guys
Okay,
like Chinese
What's the
food?
cutoff? You said like make it a couple. You know, people who are here for a couple decades get to stay and the others don't. Like, what's your cutoff?
My
How do you
no, if
justify
you're
a cutoff?
listen, I'm not trying to mass deport people who are already legal citizens.
He wants
If you're
to
here
stop
and you're
legal
already-
immigration.
You want to
if you're
stop
here-
immigration,
hold on.
period.
If you're here
let's stop.
and hold on, if you're here and you're already a legal citizen, you stay. But moratorium on immigration for the next 10 years. That's what
Do
I
you
want.
do you like Chinese food? Just yes or no. Do you like Chinese food?
Just such a stupid
Yeah,
argument.
oh, man.
That's not a good
Yeah,
argument.
do I
No,
like
but do
curry?
you like
Is it-
the
do I like
diversity?
cur-
Do you like
do
the
you like
multiculturalism
curry?
that you can
I'm-
get?
do you
Legal
like
immigration.
Burgers are
It
pretty
is
good.
diversity. You get to there's new people. There's new everything, and it's a different way of life. It's like you're experimenting. You're meeting new people. There's nothing wrong with me living next door. My next door neighbor's Asian.
You're
Cool.
misrepresenting what my point is.
They're
I do
legal.
not have I do not have a problem with minorities. I don't have a problem with different groups of people.
I'm not trying to
What
get
I'm
up
saying
minorities.
is
I'm trying to get
I'm
they're
doing
legal
a
immigrants.
cost-benefit analysis for current incoming first-generation immigrants. I'm looking at the decreasing pool of jobs. Did you know that almost all of these trucking jobs, which
You only knew how
employ
bad things really
hundreds
are.
of thousands of Americans, they're all going to
That's
be
true.
automated
Bateman,
in the next 20 to 30 years.
You know that in 2018 there were 3 million more jobs than people looking for jobs. In 2019 it was 2.8.
Okay, so again, but the quality
It
of
is
life,
declining,
the
but
quality
not
of
as
life
fast
is-
as you think.
the quality of life is, you understand what I'm saying, is going to be declining if we keep bringing in pools of people that aren't going to end up having jobs. I'm trying to think long term. Let's think long term.
If you look long term, these immigrants have children.
Also, aren't we
they
having like
start
less babies in
generation.
America?
Yes, but our population in America is increasing. That's actually a perfect solution. The fact that we're below replacement rate, especially as things become increasingly automated, will be a natural causative agent of a natural solution.
You know what this
to the
sounds like?
problem.
To me, this sounds like it's like the Nazis. You just want the Americans and the Americans. Just be that.
Yeah, let's not bring Nazis into
There it is. And there it is. Every time. Shut up, femoid. Shut up. Every time.
Are you shooting her now?
No, hold on. Let's not bring up Hitler,
I'm not trying to bring it up, I'm
Nazism, and
just trying to say how
fascism. They're two very different things.
No, it's very different.
More like across the
different,
fucking world.
but it's got that same
He's
mentality.
not
That's what- that
advocating
makes
for the
it-
genocide of anyone.
Yeah,
Come on
he's-
now.
I'm not trying to bring up genocide. I'm not trying to. Trust me, I'm
Yeah,
not
I
exactly.
do not feel
Don't-
threatened
don't
by
even
his.
say that.
By I do not feel threatened by your supposed Hitler
I'm just
ideals.
trying to see how it.
He's just
see
over
how
here
by
trying to
without
hit his
that
jewel and
immigration, that
chill.
diversity, it it's
definitely not a
creating
jewel.
that one. That
Is it
one,
not?
not
I don't know.
race, but you're just creating the American and the American.
So
and
hold on,
American.
Ben, what are you? Where's your family originally from?
Cuba.
Cuba? Did I not say that I have no problem with you being here?
I don't remember you saying anything about Cuba specifically, but
No,
I don't know.
I'm not even talking about countries. This is the
Oh.
problem. Everyone immediately, like I said, I don't have an issue with him because he's been here. He's already here. He's already a legal system. Within the legal system, he's a legal immigrant.
Where?
His parents
What's your
were
thing?
illegal.
What's your ethnicity? Where are you from?
Here's what I'm
What's
trying
your-
to say to you. I'm Irish, Italian, Slovak. Here's what I'm trying to say to you.
Cool.
Okay.
So then, how are you in America? Like, how that
thing
happen?
called
Oh
a
wait, through
plane.
legal immigration.
That's not what he's arguing. Okay, whatever. Let him finish,
Yeah,
please.
can we mute? Okay.
Yeah, Australian.
What I'm
conservative.
trying to say is the amount of people America is bringing in right now does not make sense given the future pressures of what our country is going to be facing. And we need to start thinking long term instead of short term benefits, such as keeping the wages of people below their production level. And that's honestly the whole point of immigration right now.
So, oh, sorry.
No, my problem of it is there are people in other countries. Okay, America, the land of opportunities. You agree with that, right?
I love America, if that's what you're asking me.
Like America is the land of opportunities. America is the country where anyone could go from the bottom to making money to the top, right?
I think increasingly what here's what I want to say in response to that, because I partially agree with you, but we also need to keep in mind this. What are we doing when we're taking the best, right? What we're doing is we're taking the people who would be creating solutions in these countries that have a lot of problems, and we're bringing them here.
Wait. I just have to
hold on. Let me finish my point.
Yeah, all right. After you finish,
you asked me a question, so I just want to get through this because the brain drain on these countries is actually very real. One example of this is I knew a girl who I went to college with. Her name was London, and she was from Nigeria.
London.
Right?
Oh.
Her name's London. She was from Nigeria. That's the name she told me, at least, right? And she was talking about how a lot of the most intelligent of the Nigerians are coming here to America. Does America need those intelligent people, or does Nigeria need them more?
Yes.
Sorry, I think Nigeria would need their most well-educated and their most intelligent more than America does to solve the problems currently going on in Nigeria. So not only are we creating a hazard for American citizens, right? We're also creating a hazard for these countries where we're taking their best from.
Elia had a point.
So
Sorry,
I just
unmute Republican girl. She was just like she's in one of them.
Oh, and also can we kick Mexican Republican because he keeps showing porn on his image?
I just
is Pedro still doing that? Why would he do that? Okay,
and
whatever.
I'm gonna mute again. You guys can respond to me.
Did you kick the kid that had like Thanos?
Okay, well
you don't even have to stay muted for this.
Have Ilya go. I have one point I want to make after him, but yeah, go.
So I just while you were going on with that Australian girl, I wasn't fucking paying attention because I don't really give a fuck about Australia, right? But I'm just looking at studies, and just trying to see if your claims are in any way corroborated. And just you kept emphasizing healthcare's costs, right? So if we look specifically, this is the first study I found, healthaffairs.org. The foreign-born, especially the undocumented, use disproportionately fewer medical services and contribute less to healthcare costs in relation to their population share, likely because of their better relative health and lack of health insurance. Foreign-born adults in Los Angeles County, for example, constituted 45% of the county's population's ages 18 to 64, but accounted for 33% of health spending. So, that healthcare claim, I'm not really buying it because you didn't really present any information, and just based off a quick Google search, it was found to be incorrect. Furthermore, the decline of wages, I looked this one up. I really couldn't find anything to substantiate.
Okay. Yeah, he got muted again. So if you can you unmute Bateman? I have one point I also want to make to the Nigerian thing of someone coming here,
and then I want to go back to my point.
Yeah. Totally.
Let me
so
just,
on Nigerian,
hold up. Just let me respond to one at a time because it is a lot, and I don't.
You're good. Yeah. Why don't you just respond to this, and then I want to bring something up about Nigeria.
That's fine. So Ilya, to respond to you, yes, real wages have been stagnant. Just Google United States real wages.
Yeah, but you can't really attribute that to immigration just off the bat.
And then hold on. What you just said about immigrants, think about what you said. Yes, they use it less than American citizens, but the fact that they don't typically have health care means that the cost of whatever they have done gets subsidized by the taxpayer dollar because they don't have health care.
Based off this exact study,
this study is misrepresenting the facts to you. Again, I just told you the fact that they don't have health care. Yes, that means they disproportionately use less of the services. But when they do use the services, since they don't have health care, the taxpayer has to front the bill.
But that's just conjecture.
That's not conjecture.
And you're trying to attribute an insane monetary cost to that, but you're just speculating. You have
that was just one of the multitude of costs.
I don't quite understand.
Taxpayer by this. And again, it's approximately 13.5 or 14.5 million or $1 trillion that they produce for the United States. And then if you actually remove the costs, there's studies on this. Again, read the book. We wanted workers, we got people. Okay, you can read it in there. He cites the studies too. And then if you remove the costs of them, that was just one example that I gave you. Okay, they only net $50 billion for the American tax-paying people. $50 billion. And I'm saying that's not worth.
Yeah, but I mean,
that's not worth. That's not worth the impact this is going to have on America as a country moving forward. When the incentives are increasingly shifting as technology changes.
So compared to your true definition of Americans, I mean, Americans are just getting
Miami.
lazier and lazier, and there are a lack of incentives, 100%. But the thing is, like, sure, they take in 14 and a half, and they only, generate about 50 billion. Americans, I mean, it has to be somewhere similar to that. True born, your definition of American citizens.
Well, here's the thing. That
It
might
has
be
to be
kind,
somewhat
that might
similar
be
or
kind, that might be
more.
kind of true, because if you look at it like debt to GDP, I think we're at 120% debt to GDP now. But again, a lot of this comes from the fact that the labor pool has been increasing, right? And people aren't getting paid based off their production levels anymore.
Oh wait, hold on. The labor pool's increasing, yeah, but so is the number of available jobs, right? Like available jobs is outpacing increase in the labor pool, and filling those
It
jobs
has
helps
been-
to increase.
how's
Whoa,
this-
whoa,
how's-
whoa, 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 whoa! Let me finish, please, because you interrupt like a motherfucker. All right. So filling these jobs enables the expansion of our GDP, right? And then when you kind of when you expand your GDP, you increase tax revenue. Turns out generally when GDP increases, so does the standard of living within those countries. So overall,
Aubrey, can you mute me,
well-being.
please?
Also, the whole technology argument is kind of bullshit because the market generally changes, and we're shifting more towards a service-based economy, which isn't as reliant on technology as say like manufacturing industries in like other countries like China. And
The fact that we've been shifting to a service-based economy is actually a net negative for the United States, not a net positive, because it reduces our economic resilience to recessions. This is a fact. This is why increasingly the United States has to funnel tons of liquidity into the market when we hit recessions, because we don't have any real production, right? It's not real. It's service-based, just like financial services and everything like that. And increasingly, American financial services matter less globally, because we don't have any net production, and we're reducing we're becoming a reduction in the global marketplace. The only reason why the American service economy has been buoyed so well is because we are the reserve currency of a bunch of countries. And increasingly, that's becoming less the case. Just take, for example, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has been offloading their American debt holdings, right? And they're shifting to the Chinese yuan. Why? Because the Chinese yuan has actual backing, productivity wise. And hold on one sec, something happened to my Zoom.
Just Saudi Arabia just allowed women to drive like 5 years ago.
Yeah, they did. I'm not saying Saudi Arabia is a great country, but I'm saying they're a large player.
No, I'm saying
in the
that's
oil
great.
field.
They're
and
moving towards the
increasingly,
future.
and the deal that we had with Saudi Arabia, where they use the U.S. dollar to pin their oil reserves, that ends in 2022. They're offloading their U.S. debt. They're switching to the Chinese yuan. We're no longer the biggest purchaser of Saudi Arabian oil. It's China. Right.
But we don't need to be the biggest purchaser.
Every time they sell to China, the U.S. government gets a cut. Why? Because they pin their oil to our currency. And that deal ends in 2022. So increasingly, the service-based economy meme that we've been saying, oh, it's great and everything like that. We don't have the economic resilience, okay, when we enter recessions, okay? We don't have the production to actually produce goods for our citizens. We rely on the global system. And this virus should be a wake-up call for what happens with the global economy. Oil hit negative $35 a barrel and sustained that for over a day. That means they were paying people to take oil. This doesn't make any sense.
Okay, I want to kind of circle back to what you mentioned about like them stealing like intellectual power from other countries when people come here to get an education. So I'm curious, if these people are smart and intelligent, wouldn't we want to necessarily help them through our education system get a better education so that they can maybe hopefully go back to their country or possibly come up with a solution to benefit their country? Because if we're going to be completely honest, do you think the Nigerian education system is as effective in educating those people to solve the global problems that their country or the problems their country is facing as America would be?
The Nigerian education system, their tertiary education system, is very good. Why? Because they get a lot of professors globally to go there, and because of the international, sorry, this keeps changing for me. The World Bank gives them money to work on their schools, their tertiary education, and the International Monetary Fund does as well. So their education is actually very good in Nigeria, given the circumstances.
So why are they coming here?
Because they want to be here.
Why? So if the education system is sufficient there, why are they coming here to
because
get
they could have a better life here. It's the same reason anyone comes to America, because they can have a better life here.
Okay, so then why are we denying them from coming here if they can provide a lot of intellectual stimulus and ability to solve problems that we have?
Okay, just as much, again, for the immigrants that do research here, just as much as they create research for us, which, by the way, it's primarily US-based citizens that actually produce the most research, not foreign nationals. They steal our intellectual property consistently.
How do you know that?
All the time.
Yeah, I've never
there's
seen
studies-
source like that.
I mean, it happened
how
at
do
my
you know it's them?
university just 2 years
How do you know
ago.
it's
There was a
them?
giant scandal about it.
Okay, are you saying that? Okay, great. That's an. I mean, if we're being completely honest, your personal experience involving someone at a university is not representative
This
of
is a
every
very
single immigrant.
This is a very common thing. You can look it up. Chinese people that come to the United States of America and do research projects steal our research consistently.
Not necessarily steal. If you spread research around and you share it with people, you can develop the research and further it.
That research
There you go.
is funded by the U.S. government and is sole property of the United States of America. It's not public domain.
So, what necessarily would be the net negative if we have the information? I don't know how to develop some medicine, and then they get the information too, and they're able to do it and possibly save a lot of people. I don't see
because it weakens
what is
our
the
stance globally.
weakens our stance.
Do you think we steal Chinese research consistently? They have access to us. We don't have access to them. That gives
I don't
them
know
an
if we
edge.
want access to China right now. I don't
You
see how
understand
they're
what
a
I'm
net
saying?
positive to us.
I'm saying
I
it
don't
creates a
know if
moral
that's-
hazard.
I don't know if that statement is true within itself, because like a lot of American professors, if they can't find a job in the United States, for example, would go to a foreign like university, because a lot of the times they're more higher paying. Like in Qatar, for example, a professor is paid $200,000, and a lot of the time Americans who can't find like a job in a university or a college in the States will go there for a couple years,
Yeah,
do their
especially for
research there, and
English
then
in
maybe even bring it
Qatar
back to
and China and Japan. I think they get a lot of American citizens to teach English there.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I'm just saying generally what we're doing is we're increasingly losing our position as the global powerhouse for because of many factors. And one of them is immigration.
This is, I mean, there's this thing called the military, and we're kind of like number one in that one, Chief. So
Wait,
Yeah,
but
but
I
there's
don't
also
even
an
know if we
alliance
could
forming
concede that
between
point.
Saudi Arabia, Russia, and China. There's a reason why they had this price war, right? Who benefited from the price war? China and Saudi Arabia, not America.
I don't know if I could concede that point that immigrants are causing for us to not be the power that we once were before. Because, like, first of all, our hard powers, like, is still uncontested, right? And even our, like, sphere of influence, both intellectually and in a creative sense, is uncontested. Like, virtually all forms of media and all forms of entertainment come from the United States. And I think it wouldn't be unreasonable to attribute this to some sort of diversity of thought and culture, right?
okay. Also,
Yeah,
hold
well,
on,
I'm not
before
trying
you-
to steal the
hold
show
on,
right
before
now,
you
so I'm
go
gonna let some
back.
other people.
Yeah,
throw some stuff
Aubrey,
into it.
unmute. Cool guy. He's supposedly an economist. And anybody else who wants to talk? Aubrey, you're doing
I
a.
also study the financial sector. Just give me 1
Yo,
second.
Bateman boy. I'm also Slavic, so mad respect. I am an economist, actually. Well, I'll be an economist in a week when I graduate. I have
That's great. Well, hopefully
Hold on 1 second.
graduate.
Just before you tell me something, I want to grab a pen because I want more than one person to respond to me quick too, and I'll just write down. All right, we're good.
Sick.
All right, let me know when I'm good to talk.
Go. You're good.
All right. So I've got my senior thesis here. I'm just going to read off of it because I did mine on immigration. I'll start off with with disproportionate welfare use. Research done by Stephen Camarota and Karen Ziegler at the Center for Immigration Studies. 63% of immigrant-headed households used at least one welfare program, compared to 35% of native households. When excluding the earned income tax credit, welfare use decreases to 58% for immigrant households and 30% for native households. Immigrant households were also found to use food stamp programs and Medicaid at over twice the rate of native households. Even after immigrants become naturalized citizens, they still use one or more welfare programs at a rate of over 50%. So that's just government programs that they're accessing. We're going to go to wages now. In a paper by George Borhash published in Quarterly Journal of Economics, Borhash found that between 1980 and 2000, wages fell by an average of 3.2% for native workers as a result of an 11%
closet. I've looked in your closet. I've looked in your drawers. I've looked everywhere.
What's going on?
Sorry, just mute Jeremy, I think, or something.
I don't have In another paper done by Borhass, he found that the $1.6 trillion contribution to GDP by immigrants, 97.8% goes to the immigrants themselves in the form of wages and benefits, leaving the immigrant surplus to be a meager 2.2%. In Borhass's 2013 research, he also found that wages decreased by 3.7% for men and 2.5% for women. So this is consistent over the time span of a decade. a decade of entire wage research. This is like one of the most. This is the leading economist in labor
Borjas
economics.
is based, and you are based for knowing.
Thank
Borjas.
you. So are you. What else do I have in here that's pertinent? The National Academy of Sciences of 1997 in a report titled "The New Americans" found that the average fiscal burden placed on Native households, this is the amount of money a Native household incurs for immigration, ranges between $166 to $226 per household. These are models derived from data in New Jersey and California. So this isn't just measuring southwestern states. This measures two different weighted demographic state, or two different states weighted with varying demographics. Sorry, it's late. My brain is kind of fried. What else should I go over here? Oh, there was one thing in here that you could infer Native birth rates being affected by immigrants because they were responsible for like almost a 40% increase in the housing market in the 90s, and obviously the recession affected that. But if you have houses being inflated by immigrants coming to the country, that's going to make purchasing houses for natives much harder. And it's possible. There hasn't been a plethora of research done on this, but
in Australia though, that's particularly apparent, and same with Canada. Canada and Australia, their housing market is a disaster because of the amount of immigrants they've been bringing in, high paid immigrants as well, from China. Yeah,
so Native Americans, well, people that were born in America could be being priced out of parenthood by inflated housing costs as well as decreasing wages. What else do I have in here?
So would you be in favor necessarily, because you were saying when a lot of immigrants are coming and accessing the welfare state, if something like the welfare state were to be abolished, therefore removing kind of that sort of incentive for people to come here and live off American welfare, do you think that would remove some of the problems that you're speaking of?
Yeah, but that would never happen. If we got rid of the welfare system, the American economy would collapse because
currently it would. Currently it would, but I think that the cycle of welfare that we're creating, in which kind of people are given just enough to live, but if they try to get out of that sort of system and they're basically just in poverty as they were before.
Why would the average American citizen work if they can get welfare when wages are so stagnant? That's the problem. The reason why the welfare system is so overburdened, again, has a lot to do with the fact that we're taking in like 0.2% of our population in immigrants every year. And that adds up. People don't think it adds up. It does. And that conglomerates into a large effect. You know, I don't know what else to say. Just look up the Immigration Act. You know what I mean? It wasn't an issue until then. Why wasn't it an issue till then? Because we weren't taking in this much people this quickly.
So you think the welfare state is an effective form for native-born citizens, but for people who are born abroad coming in?
No, what I'm saying is the welfare system would have been effective if we didn't have this sort of structure. The problem with the welfare system has to do with stagnant wages, right? And reduced incentives to work. I mean, people aren't going to work if the incentives aren't there.
Agreed. And I don't think we should be giving people a free pass for not working or barely working at all.
So wait, I just have to
again,
address
the problem with that is, why would they work? It's not just getting by though. Like there's no point in working if you're not going to be able to financially achieve something beneficial, especially if you're low educated, right? Why would they work? Their wages have been stagnant and decreasing in some instances for the past 30 years.
So wait, so he listed a lot of things there, right? And specifically so first of all, he addressed like the taxpayer burden of immigrants and whatnot, right? So first of all, when you look at like statistics like these, it's kind of hard to make like a proper inference upon how much they burden the taxpayer system, because you could arrive at the data via like a multitude of methodology. Maybe you take into account like public education spending, when in reality you can't get real estimates as to those types of figures. But even if we give you the benefit of the doubt, right, let's say all of that research is spot on and there's a net negative effect fiscally due to taxation, due to immigration on the welfare system, right? That doesn't mean that it's a net negative effect on the economy, right? Like you could have a net negative fiscal burden, but you could have a net positive monetary outcome. So just because
if wages are decreasing, how is that possible? I mean, that could be true. The fact that you're enriching like the top 1%. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're it's benefiting the wrong people. We want to increase the wealth
The
for the
wrong
average
people.
But
What do
but
you
you're
mean by
so
the
wait,
wrong
whoa, whoa, whoa,
people?
whoa, 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 whoa. I know this talking point.
The rich people, dude. It's
But
not the immigration policy doesn't help you. It helps the top 1% of people reduce their spending. That's the
Okay,
point
yeah,
of it.
and you cited Borjas specifically, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the thing about Borjas is like his conclusions as to like how to tackle this issue are not in line with yours. He doesn't.
Yeah, it's tax policy. Yeah, I know that, but I don't.
Yeah,
think that
yeah,
was-
what's
the
your
thing
issue with that?
The thing is though, when you read the Borjas study, you need to understand we can have a difference of what the conclusion of how to fix it is.
But yours
But the reason why we
more
bring
radical.
in hold up, please let me finish. The reason why that research came into play here is to corroborate what I said, where you said there was no evidential backing. That's why he said that, because there is evidence that what I'm saying is true. And I say that Borjas's taxation solution doesn't get to the root of the problem, especially when we're seeing increasingly the automation of jobs that are fundamental for the lower class of American citizens. I really want you to just look at what's going to happen to the truck drivers of the United States of America, and then think about what that means.
If a job is going to be automated, it's going to be automated no matter what, because immigrant labor
I understand
wouldn't
that, but why would we be increasing the labor pool of unskilled workers unnecessarily and harming them even further?
because that could lead to the creation of more American jobs also.
Yeah, they're
What?
Bruh.
So like
You're gonna have to
specifically when,
expand. Sorry, go on.
specifically when you like allow for like more agricultural labor to come into the United States, what comes as a result of it is like high skill management positions being created that pay infinitely more than a regular agricultural job would, like management positions, shit along with fuck. I'm really like bad at explaining economic positions because like I'm not an economic major as you.
Guys, can you hold on 1 second? I'm gonna have to hop back into this call. Is it possible for you to get me back in here because my computer screen froze?
Yeah, as long as
there's
you,
only
as long
there's
as
only
you,
54
just-
people in here, so you're fine. You'll be able
Okay,
to.
I'll be
we'll
back.
find you.
Sorry about that, guys.
Okay, wait, I'm gonna go to bed. I'm like falling asleep, so I'm gonna.
You can make me host if you want, or Christian. Yeah, Christian
Ben's
works.
not
Christian's
here.
cool.
I want to be honest. I'm going to
Christian
sleep.
stays.
I'm real tired. To
okay.
make me
You
host.
me host,
Christian,
Aubrey.
God
I can
damn it,
take
I'll-
it.
Christian, I can do
is
it if you
Ashton
want.
still here?
Hey, Christian, you're going to bed too.
Everyone.
Fuck. I
Good
don't
night,
know how to give this
Aubrey.
to.
Bye, Aubrey.
Christian, I can do it if you need.
Bye.
I can.
All right, Oliver, you're
Bye,
gonna host.
Aubrey.
Bye,
Great,
Aubrey.
sounds good.
So basically, what I was trying to say is that I also have to leave soon as well, but I just want to make this final closing point, I suppose. Basically, what I was trying to say, if you allow for an influx of immigrant labor, that could open up positions that like previously hadn't been there before, specifically like in management sectors and stuff like that. And that's exactly why Borjas arrives at the conclusion that he does. He says immigration redistributes wealth from those who compete with immigrants to those who use immigrants, from the employee to the employer. So inherently, what you don't want to do is just allow for a complete stoppage of labor from foreign entities, because eventually that's going to hurt you in a monetary sense. What you want to do is you want to hold the 1% and the more rich, the people who are profiting off of this discrepancy, accountable, specifically like through his tax policy. That's why I made that comment earlier.
Yeah, but if you're automating away most of these jobs, what are these managers and like I guess what you would define as more middle class labor? What would they do? Would they make sure the robot is stamping the right parts? Like that problem kind of takes care of itself.
Well, because the labor costs are so low, there's not necessarily an incentive to automate them.
I'm sorry?
Well, because the labor costs are really low, there really isn't that much of an incentive to automate them.
No, there is. If you can make a one-time purchase for a machine, that's like that's like 10 times your labor costs. So like you're going to be. I'm sorry. Let me figure out a way to word this properly. This is like my bedtime. I'm an old man. If you were to invest in labor-saving devices, it'll obviously make more money. It'll save you more money over the long run. This is why cars are made with robots now, thus eliminating the need for these low-skilled jobs. And another thing, I didn't include this in my paper, but I know this is research, and I could find it fairly quickly for you guys if you want it. But there were studies done that if you were to eliminate all illegal immigrant labor in the United States, short-term costs in agriculture would only rise by 6% and then lower to 2% in an intermediate term. But they were unable to deduce long-term costs. But 2% on a tomato or an apple, I don't know where you guys live, but that's 5 cents.
Yeah,
Like
but
the
I mean, I wouldn't make any radical like change without knowing the long term effect of it.
But wait, I'm just curious. Why wouldn't it raise prices that much? Is that due to like elasticity?
yeah. Another thing to take into account, the price elasticity of a lot of goods that are performed by illegal and legal immigrant labor. If you were to eliminate illegals or legals from those jobs and hire Americans at higher wages, the executives would just eat the costs or eat most of them because the people won't buy the goods if they're too expensive.
Okay. One thing I want to say to the immigration point is I think we're talking about a lot of ways in which like immigrants are like causing issues in our country. Now, whether or not that's true, I guess we're debating. But if it is true, I guess unless you're someone who believes we should suspend immigration to this country forever, don't you think it's good that we're having immigrants in this country and we have to figure out a way in order to stabilize our economy with immigrants being in the system? I'm just curious, like, what do you think? Like, how is that going to,
There are some. I'm a little fuzzy on specific policy solutions to this. I outlined several solutions to the problem that I outlined in my paper. The three of them were implementation of the RAISE Act, which I wasn't too keen on, a strict immigration quota system that we had similar to between like 1922 and 1965, and then a moratorium. And I could outline, roughly what we would see from all three of those. The RAISE Act, I did the least amount of research on because it's boring and I don't want to read through congressional papers. But
okay. Well, my only concern is that we're trying. I mean, at least there's a big push to try to like limit immigration now, and I'm just curious how effective is that? And if you're saying immigrants are harming jobs, like what is? I mean, and this might get onto a whole tangent, and I don't want to get onto a whole thing of like immigration policies or stuff like that. But like, I guess like if we aren't stopping immigration like currently through our policies, do you believe that like somehow stricter policies will result in less immigration?
A stricter immigration policy would result in less immigration, yes, unless I completely misunderstood what you said.
Well, slightly, because at least how we're implementing it now, I mean, we're having an influx of people come across the border, whether we'd like to or not. Now, I mean, I guess it comes down to the fact of, do we want to try to grant them citizenship and make them tax-paying Americans that are productive to our economy? Exactly, but I'm not exactly sure how you feel about that.
I definitely think it should be reduced significantly. The majority of economic research suggests that this is not good for Native Americans. Native-born Americans. I don't know how politically correct you guys are going to get.
No, okay. Yeah, I mean, Ilya, go. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just about to dip, so I just want to like make like I suppose like a pseudo closing remark. So like my concern with this is I feel like in order to like come to this conclusion that immigration is like the number one problem in this situation, you kind of have to look at it through a vacuum. And I feel like a lot of the problems that you attribute solely to immigration could be resolved through like solution of a discrepancy in income inequality, or holding like the people who profit most off of immigrant labor more accountable and make immigrant labor more beneficial to the general populace. And a lot of the critiques that you extend to immigrant influxes, I don't really buy into. Like only six majority, I mean like of 474 civilian occupations, only 6 are majority immigrant. Like the healthcare critique, I don't really buy into that. Based off studies, there is no net gain or net drain, but what we do know is that immigrants, especially undocumented, subsidize the cost of Medicare in our country. The stagnation of wages can't inherently be attributed to immigration because a lot has changed since like the 80s.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
And even like specific economists that you cite, crucial to your points, like Borjas, like I've illustrated this over and over again, does not agree with your conclusion because it is within itself so radical, and it would be detrimental when there are obvious other solutions that we could take and other paths that would not inherently have to like stop immigration into the United States,
Yeah, to get back to one thing with the multitude of factors affecting wages. Yes, automation has had a negative effect on wages. I would agree with you there, but I don't think we should be making it worse by continuing to bring in large amounts of immigrants.
But I have a question. So it seems like
Wait, I just gotta say, I'm dipping right now. I'm leaving.
So it sounds like you're more like you could be like socially progressive economically, right? Like it sounds like you would want to raise the minimum wage. You'd want to increase unions, right?
I haven't really thought about that a whole lot. I came into this purely thinking on immigration, because that's what you guys were talking about, I'd have to mull over that. I wouldn't assign any specific label to me right now. I'm not gonna say anything like that or come out with any specific label. But I don't think I'm certainly not socially progressive. I'm socially conservative. I'm a
well, I mean, economically progressive, because like you're talking about what, like income inequality, stuff like that, typically stuff that,
yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the largest debates in contemporary economics right now, with because you do see a lot of you see a large amount of erosion in social cohesion with wide disparities in income, and immigration does affect that. It makes the problem worse.
Okay, so I think we've been on this topic for like a long time, so I think it might be fair to kind of move on to a few other topics.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I know we've just been on this for a while, so
I'm like
I'm
actually.
sorry.
sorry I didn't hear
Tari.
what. Sorry, I didn't hear. I'm gonna probably just, I guess, maybe like unmute a few people who have their hands raised to ask questions, unless anyone who is currently unmuted
Hey,
wants to
there's
bring
this
any.
guy that's Oliver on mute, and he's like been flexing on the camera,
Oh.
like, yeah.
Oh, dude. I mean, like, what's my name? Or is that just? That's just Condi saying Oliver unmute me. I thought it was someone who had my name, and I was gonna be like, that's so cool. Here we go. All right. Yes, Condi. What do you want?
Wow, I love you, Oliver. Thank you. I've been waiting here for like an hour and a half.
Thank me, sir.
Thank you.
I wasn't originally gonna like unmute you. I thought your mom was gonna come on and start yelling.
Oh
at me
no,
again.
no, she's asleep. I made sure of that.
Okay, good about that.
Okay, okay. How do you guys feel about gun control? Oliver, I know how you feel about it.
Bad and
You
ineffective.
don't know how I feel about it.
I know how you feel about it. I've been in multiple Zoom calls with you.
Absolutely. That was before I was like.
I like it, Kate. I like it a lot.
That's before I was
Gun
like.
bans will not work, but gun restrictions could work.
Could work.
Statistically, they work really well.
No, they don't.
If they already have it,
Restrictions
In what circumstances?
Gun restrictions do not work.
The countries with the lowest gun violence rates.
Sorry, Devin, we're losing you.
We can't hear you, Devin.
Yeah, Devin, you're glitching.
Devin, you're
Per
glitching.
capita have some extreme restrictions.
It's
Countries.
Oh my God.
Devin, we can't understand you.
Sorry, 1 second. What are you saying,
Am I
Tori?
glitching that bad?
Yes, you are.
Is that bad, brother?
Like really, really bad, bro.
Wow. Can I say something for like 0.2 seconds? Okay.
Yes.
All the people that are physically raising your hands, just click the raise your hand button so you don't have to do that. And I don't want to watch the blood like drain down your arm.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Dog.
Kate, I love your gun.
There you go.
Not safe.
Yeah, so I want to add something in here. I used to be a huge proponent of gun control, but it really depends what kind of gun control you're talking about, because I think there's a very big difference, and the studies show that there's a difference between like getting guns out of the hands of the wrong people and just generally banning any specific gun. Like, I used to be a proponent of the AR-15 ban, or like an assault weapons ban, and I just realized that that's not the most effective way to stop gun violence. It's more of just like trying to find people who might use like a weapon the wrong way, might have mental issues, have like trigger a lot of red flag laws, stuff like that, but like not universally banning any specific weapon that we have now. So
I think they should not ban any guns. I think we should be able to bear any guns and use them, like military grade guns. Think about it; they're full auto. A regular person's gonna shoot it, and they're not gonna control the recoil on it. There's no way in hell. You have to be like an actual skilled like marksman.
I agree with Jay.
I just don't think. Okay, I get like having guns like for like personal reasons, like keepsakes, with like people that like to collect. Like if you like to collect guns, like by all means, that's awesome. Good for you. I just don't know how like having a military grade weapon like is the most safe, especially in our time. Like I totally respect that you like.
AR-15 isn't a military grade weapon.
The AR-15 is not a military
grade weapon.
It's just big and scary.
It's
That's
big and
another
scary.
reason.
So
Like,
It
that's
is,
why the
that's
Second
all.
Amendment was made too. Like,
Yeah,
to protect
okay.
in fear of a
So-
tyrannical government.
Yeah, but it
Exactly.
depends what we're looking at. Okay, can we be completely honest? The government has nuclear weapons and drones and tanks.
Yeah, we'd be dead.
You're bringing
I mean,
guns
we
to a
just-
tank fight. Like seriously,
No,
I don't
hold
see that
on.
as a valuable argument.
Whether
towards this.
you have
I need to interject. Can I please speak?
Go for it, Devin.
the
You're
United
glitching
States-
out like crazy.
The United States
fully
military.
auto weapon or not, you're gonna.
Sorry, dude, you're glitching out so bad.
Yeah, mute him.
All right, go. I want to let him go. Sorry. I apologize.
In a hypothetical scenario where there's an armed insurrection against the U.S. government against the people, the United States government is never going to use heavy ordnance on its people. The value in the American nation is its infrastructure and its human capital. You will never see nukes or heavy ordnance being deployed on its people because it would completely defeat the point of reunifying the country. Aside from some Civil War scenario where we don't even engage in combat like that anymore, it'd be completely fruitless. But I don't think there would ever be an armed insurrection. The United States, the people don't have the will anymore. You saw that in Richmond, Virginia, with that gun or with that gun rally. It's those people don't have balls. I'm not saying they should have done anything they shouldn't, but in previous times, different things probably would have happened.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think we both agree there that it wouldn't happen.
Completely disagree, but that's okay. I see where you're coming from.
Okay.
Or should all go follow me on Instagram at Corey Dose?
No.
I'm fine.
JK, I'm not gonna mute you. I'll unmute
No,
you.
you are. You are gonna mute me. That's a fat mute.
No, I'm not. Josiah, shut up.
You gotta pay
Josiah
promotions
is my
here.
king. Josiah is my king now. He's been my king for a while.
I'm gonna unmute certain people to do this. Josiah, don't do that, bro.
No, I just had to do something. I just had to
All right,
save
fine.
the world.
That's all right, dude. All right.
Bateman boy.
Oh, sorry, I did not realize he was back. All right,
Yeah,
there you
he's
go,
back.
man. You're unmuted.
All right, so you guys are getting on the topic of guns. Okay, first off, give me 1 second here. All right, who's got the clip? Okay, I got the clip. Right, second off,
Apocrypha.
Second off, the thing is, we've learned now, I think, at this point, right, when we went into Vietnam, that asymmetric warfare works. Even if you're going up against a person with a lot more guns and a lot better equipment, it really doesn't make a difference. You know what I mean? Asymmetric warfare is a big thing. You know what I mean? When's the last time America really won a war? We've been stagnant on things. It's not the same anymore. And they're not going to mutually assure destruction their own citizens. It's a big difference.
All right. Well, I mean, I think the way to prevent a tyrannical government is by, exercising your rights to, not.
Right, and then on top of that, I just want to add too that, of the areas with the highest gun restrictions, they're the ones with the most gun violence.
Okay. Yeah. So and then that is a fair point. I think we can also say that state borders are not like valuable, or not valuable, but not like strict borders, meaning, Illinois, has a high gun rate, but you can also just go right to Indiana and get a gun much easier without as many restrictions and just bring it back. And then,
in response to that, I would say, gun-free zones are the most likely targets of mass shootings.
Exactly.
Yes,
I agree
I
with
was about
Bateman
to
boy.
bring up New Zealand. What happened in New Zealand? How they have strict gun laws, and you saw what happened with the mosque shooting.
Hey, just show me the whole dang video.
Yeah, I showed you the whole
man showed us
thing.
the whole video.
Are you guys talking about AR-15 bans?
They banned.
No, not really.
They did a study, about the UK after they had their gun ban. It didn't decrease violence. Actually, violence has been increasing in the UK since the gun ban. I mean, it doesn't work. They just switched to knives, and now they want to ban knives.
Or acid.
Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't work. Violent people will have violent ends. That's just how it is. You would have to change what makes violent people. You got to get to the root, and the root isn't the gun; it's the person.
Yeah,
I agree.
I like that.
You're right. You're right, Bateman boy, for sure.
All right. Yeah, I think I don't know. I think that's a good point.
and
when
I
it
think
comes to it.
California is very stupid on banning
yeah,
AR-15s because guns.
1000%. I'm ashamed to be a
pistols
Californian.
pistols are way more dangerous than the AR-15.
No, yeah, AR-15s and shotguns are only used in 14% of mass shootings altogether.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that's why I'm ashamed to be a Californian.
I don't blame you.
It needs to be a shame.
Move to North Carolina.
I don't know. Okay. Well,
I like
so do we want to?
I like North Carolina.
Got the
All
Outer
right.
Banks.
So
Wait, what about
I mean,
Outer Banks?
unless someone
Nice.
okay. Unless someone has to like a whole bunch they want to add directly to this, I thought I'd unmute another person for a question.
Unmute. I disagree.
One
Sure.
person
Yeah.
keeps
We'll
talking
unmute
about
them.
Chicago.
A little debate.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna unmute the unmute. I disagree. All right,
Chicago's
you are
bad.
Hi,
unmuted.
can
What do
you
you
hear
have
me?
to say? Yes.
Hi. Well, this is actually a bit like more in the
Oh,
past.
no.
I was disagreeing with something. I think Thomas is really good. I really like that guy. I don't know if he's still here. I like the I like the Batman. I forgot his name.
Hey, Ben Pollan.
Yeah, it was
Ben
really
Pollan.
good. You know, I like that. I think if anything, I was someone that was agreeing with immigration. I think there was a point. I think he might have left.
Okay. We're kind of moving
about
on
that, but
from there.
But okay, I can ask another question then. Because
Yeah,
I
for
think,
sure, man.
Mute him.
Right. So my question, I think, would be what it means to be a conservative in today's, I guess, political sphere. Like what it means to be conservative, and if we're ceding our values, or are we shifting it a bit more to the left?
That's a great
I
question.
think, because
being a conservative is about conserving what makes America great, and that is our freedoms and our Constitution, not religion.
So
Thank
who
you.
asked that question? Because I want to add you on TikTok.
Unmute. I disagree. I don't know the name though.
Chief Trumpster. That's my name.
I have a quick question.
I'm Chief Trumpster.
So to
That's
answer
my
that
TikTok.
question,
What's your question?
To answer that question, in my opinion, being conservative doesn't mean you're conserving anything anymore. You're not. The only thing you're conserving is the flow of capital. That's what I think it means to be a conservative right now. You just conserve the flow of capital. I don't see it as conserving anything else because we've seen the same people here saying
Because I think a very big point though is being as a conservative is whether or not we put our own citizens kind of ahead and make sure that they have the same standard that they had before, and they're able to have a successful life and have as little barriers as possible to that.
Let's go into what being a conservative means now.
I'd love to, yeah.
I mean, let's look at America, right? Divorce rate of 55%. More marriages end in divorce now than remain stable. And you're not going to tell me that's because religion plays less of a key role in society now. But the thing is, I don't want to say that I don't disagree with separation of church and state. It's not merely about the government. When you're talking about politics, it's not just the government, it's the people, it's the culture, it's a lot of other factors. So when I say I'm a conservative, what I mean is I'm for conserving what we've had historically, both culturally, right, and economically, and governance. It's not just the governance factor. And I think a lot of people get wrapped up in the whole, but my Constitution, right? My Constitution says my Constitution, but where in the Constitution does it say that we have to have a global economy? Where in the Constitution does it say that we have to import millions of people a year? I don't see that in the Constitution. That was ratified on the 1965 Immigration Act. That is not historic.
I agree. I'll tell you, because when I hear conservatism today, I hear a lot of, names thrown around and a lot of concepts thrown around. And I'm thinking, well, is that what conservatism really is? Is that really what conservatism is supposed to be? And are we kind of letting the left and other organizations kind of take away what the actual definition of conservatism is?
They've created this is a great point, and it's just like, oh, I'm a capitalist versus I'm a socialist. It's a false dichotomy. You know who started using the word capitalist? Who's the first person who came up with that word? Anybody know?
Libertarian?
No, Karl Marx.
Karl Marx.
Well, I have a question for Bateman boy.
It's called a dialectic tactic. They create two false narratives and pit them against each other because they know it'll help their side. There's no fundamental underlying difference between the modern conservative and the modern liberal, except that one thinks that kids can chop their penises off. I think.
Because even when he said all the things you said are,
dude,
that's
so false.
That is very false.
Fundamentally,
how could you even say that? Honestly,
it's a dialectic. It's a false dichotomy. You have the capitalist versus the socialist, and both of them, right, are culturally liberal. Let's be
okay,
real.
but no. Let me take this one. Let me take this one. What you're saying is,
tell me how conservatives
in 1976 we had different values, right? Right? We had values. We did not accept homosexuality in 1976, right? And we're starting to become more progressive because we're becoming more accepting as a culture, but we're not becoming liberals. The liberals want to take away our guns. We stand very strong by the Second Amendment.
Jen Crenshaw wanted red flag laws, right? Jen Crenshaw wanted red flag laws, and other people on our own side are advocating for a bunch of concepts and ideas that are taking gun rights away. So I was actually
1 second. Yeah. What is wrong? Also, what is wrong with taking?
Since you're host, I just want to bring this up. There are like a lot of people unmuted. Like I think that when you like answer questions, I think you forget to mute people back up. So like we have like a lot of people talking over each other right now.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm the only one to notice that too, but
I don't want to
just a
interrupt
suggestion.
people. Sorry about
Well,
that.
no, wait,
No,
well,
no,
I
you're
mean,
good. You're good, man.
I think that means like he really is like kind of.
Yeah,
he-
Bateman, you're
I
good.
think he's really been really doing a good job of, kind of like setting the idea off and really just giving a new perspective of things. I think he's really doing a good job about that. But I'd say that a lot of people on our own side, including the NRA themselves, are actually kind of ceding on some gun specifics. So I would say that even on gun rights, even though conservatives are supposed to be the side that say, we should have, we shouldn't have any infringement on our Second Amendment. there's still bits of
Because
it.
yes, there are some guns that maybe shouldn't be allowed to the public. Like
maybe shouldn't.
I
be
just
allowed
want
to
to
the
point
public.
out, in 1778, there were private warships with cannons.
And I also would say
people
that
always
if
say,
that,
Amelia, you're unmuted by the way. If you want to talk.
people always say,
can I make one thing
for,
also? Or never mind.
Okay, I just have
Sorry,
a quick question for Bateman Boy. So I know that you're talking about how we should not have people legally coming into our country because it's taking away American jobs. But what about the people that are immigration lawyers and people who work for those? By doing that, you're taking away their jobs because they've like spent their whole life studying that. So what would you think that would be? Do you
I think if
that
a
they-
person's an immigration lawyer, they have enough background to shift to some other form of lawyership.
Okay.
But actually, I think there's a point that's kind of brought up where, well, it was more along the lines of like what we should have and we should not have. Back in the old days, there was no electronic devices and no sort of email, and newspapers are digital as it is today. The First Amendment kind of translated from these old, outdated, ways of people used to go and send things to a new modern way of doing it. So even though
I
there
actually
weren't
disagree with
any-
that because our founding fathers were very smart men and they definitely predicted some sort of technological advancements.
That is based on the Supreme Court ruling. That is a Supreme Court ruling about that. That's how you can have First Amendment speech online. If it were back in the old days, you'd only be allowed to go and have, print newspapers and have only your freedom of speech there, but not online, or even any other mediums that are now new today. It's based on a Supreme Court ruling. It is literally based on that, and that's the whole idea of translating the Constitution over to modern times. I doubt that the Supreme Court, that the founding fathers had any idea that the AI or many other modern things that are existing today. So I would disagree very strongly with that, because that's patently false. We have so many new things that I doubt anybody would think of back then. I think that in the future, 200, 300 years from now, I doubt anybody would think of stuff that's going to come out then. There's
Not only
no
that,
idea
but
how.
to hit
Yeah.
on that point even harder for you, I want you to keep in mind this too. The public sphere where the First Amendment was covered, if you went out in public and you spoke, you spoke. But now the public sphere is increasingly online on private platforms.
Yes. Correct.
And that's not
exactly.
And they get Section 230 freedom from protection from the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, right? They get their copyright protection, but we don't get our First Amendment protection. And this goes back into the fact that these companies.
How do you not have your First Amendment protection?
Do you know what Facebook does?
Yeah,
Do you know
And
what
off of Twitter and Facebook. And
Yeah. they
Time
get
out.
banned.
Time out. Are those not private corporations and entities
They
that
receive
who could be on their
federal
platform?
funding. They receive
Agreed.
federal
I don't.
funding.
Okay, I agree, and I don't think they should be receiving that. But regardless,
Oliver, I
yeah.
want you to keep
If they
this in
receive
mind.
federal,
Well, I'm sorry, but maybe you shouldn't be putting some neo-Nazi type shit on Facebook. Like,
what? Every person
I'm not
who's
saying-
banned is a neo-Nazi? Are you kidding?
Okay,
me?
No,
That's so
no.
slanderous.
Hold up, Ben. Hey, Ben. When the founding fathers wrote the First Amendment, did they say no neo-Nazi shit as an amendment, like a little addendum to it?
No.
And anybody can say whatever the hell they want. That's what it meant.
True. But if it's on a private
I'm-
platform, they have the right to remove
principality
it.
of it.
So what
Hold up,
do
let
you
me
want the
finish my point.
government to do
Let me-
to
let me-
these
let me
private
finish my point.
platforms?
Let me finish my point. I'll be quick. The
Yeah, let them
principality
do
of
it.
the First Amendment was that it was for the public sphere, where people engaged with publicly, and increasingly that is less in the physical world and more so online. Just because that public sphere is now owned by a private entity doesn't change the fact that, principally speaking, the reason why the First Amendment was written would have been leveraged over to this. If the founding fathers were born today in today's society, you think they wouldn't say the First Amendment applies to these kinds of platforms?
Well,
Of
it
course
depends what type of person they were. If they believed in small government, they would not want the government regulating private businesses and what they can and can't do on their private business. So I don't know. I mean, I can't firmly say exactly what they would do, but to speculation, do you want more government involved in private business? Because that's something that I feel like most conservatives at least seem to not be in line with.
It depends on the business.
I think,
and also,
I think we're mincing words and we're doing this false dichotomy thing again. The underpinning fundamental reason the First Amendment was written was so that people can speak their minds, and increasingly people speak their minds not in person and publicly, but online.
Okay.
But they can go speak publicly if they really want to say the shit that they
don't
do.
have to.
You understand the fundamental underlying principle of why the First Amendment was written.
But
no.
I also understand why we wanted a
Thomas
small
Jefferson
government.
to today, and he saw that Facebook is primarily where people speak. He would
exactly
extend the amendment to that platform.
So why do you think that Facebook is such a large platform? Because of the government subsidies they are receiving that basically make it so that smaller entities are not able to compete.
I already talked
Yeah,
about
so they should be nationalized and
socialized costs and privatized earnings. I agree with how the system is run from a financial
Completely.
standpoint. But the fact of the matter is, why do people use Facebook? Because there's a lot of people on Facebook. It's like a site.
Okay.
The reason why people use these platforms is to access more people. You're not going to create, it's not going to be this free market thing. It's always going to tend towards unification and conglomeratization, because the point of it is almost like a public sphere. It's like when you go to sit down in a public park or something like that. You don't.
It is, but it's not a public sphere.
Okay.
It is a private business. That you can't change that.
Hold on.
Right, well, then
I have a
treat them
question.
like
Wait. I have a question.
Treat them like a private business and let them
Hold
get
on.
sued
Agreed.
for the media on their platform.
Agreed.
Hold on. Wait,
Agreed.
I have a question.
I
have a
100%
question.
agree with you.
Let's say that you were banned from the water supply or the banking because you had policy that they disagree with, and they just made a term of service up from all these banks or all these, or maybe even want to do better. Let's say there's only one water supply or like one electrical supply, or not a lot of companies in your area. You're in a very rural area.
Is it a private area? But that's the thing, is that's not
Right.
the case.
So
you're creating a situation.
In your mind, I get what he's trying to say. In your mind, should a private water system, that's the only water system you have access to, have the right to remove your access of water because of something you said?
No,
I mean, if
because
they're
it doesn't reflect on the water. No, I'm not going to say
You're a
something
private
and
company,
say,
they can
"Oh,
remove
I
that?"
stand next to this water company. This is a water company I use." When you're on Facebook,
The
saying
whole
this
point of
shit, it
Section
reflects directly
230
on
protection
Facebook.
that these companies get is that they don't, what the media posted on them doesn't reflect on the company. It reflects on the person posting it.
The point of this matter.
It does kind of reflect on it, because you could say, let's say I said I fucking hate N-words on Facebook, right? That's my First Amendment right. But if Facebook doesn't take that down or remove me, then Facebook is in a way supporting that.
Yeah, it's a way of condoning it.
Look, I agree with
We
Ben.
have the first.
Ben just had a very valid point.
Since the American government as an entity has the First Amendment, does that mean the neo-Nazis in here, they tacitly support them?
No,
Wait,
but they're
what?
letting them do their own thing. But Facebook is a privately
what's
owned
the
company.
difference?
So if you let them privately owned company, they have the
This is a private Zoom call. You can make that same. I think you can make that same statement. If there are people in here, let's say there was one really bad or racist person, and they were in here, and you know they maybe they didn't even say anything. Maybe they just existed here, and it happened, and this Zoom call ended. Would that mean that you supported them during that duration without removing them? I would disagree with that. That logic is really just.
Well, I actually don't find that true
with
at all, because we have had people say some crazy shit like Hail Hitler in here and stuff, and we remove them. So, because we don't support that, we do not stand for that whatsoever.
But there was that one person. That one person
There's a
may
difference
still be here.
between. There's a difference between this very, very private subsect of what we're talking about and a very, very public Facebook. With
No, there's
billions-
not.
But it's not very, very public. It might be very, very public, but it is privately owned.
Company.
I have a question.
Privately owned. If you want to spread your message, you can choose to go to another platform, and another platform can choose to host your information.
You can go outside. Okay. Let's imagine quarantine didn't exist for this example. Just you can literally just go outside to any corner, to any mall, to any town center with your signs, with whatever you want, and you will not be arrested or asked to leave. Maybe, of course, people will harass you.
The fundamental premise of why the First Amendment was written was because the public sphere back then is different than the public sphere now. People
It's
would
privately owned. They can do whatever they want.
The fundamental underlying
not-
principles for why the First Amendment was written would
So,
extend out to social
Bateman,
securities
so
today, because that's
you
increasingly
propose the government intervenes with these private companies in order to protect other people's freedom of speech.
Huh?
What's
Is that what you propose?
Can you repeat the question?
What was the
So, do you propose that the government goes into these private companies and forces them to allow people to say these things?
Yes.
Of course.
No,
Okay.
that I disagree with that because, like Ben said, it is a private company, and Facebook. While I don't agree with their
That's why
censorship,
we have
they have the right to do it.
legislation.
So
So
they
we
have a
can
right to
so we can
silence people.
translate
Like,
what
Yes,
what
they
the
do.
principles of
They
why
do.
these things were written.
They do have the right to
into the
silence people
modern-
because it's a private company, just like Ben said. I
Facebook
don't.
and Twitter.
We're going in
So-
circles here with this conversation.
Let me
Because
finish.
I'm
Let me
just-
finish
We're not
talking.
gaining
Let
anything.
him go.
Can I go after you?
Let Bateman go.
He
Can I go
asked me a
after you?
question.
Okay.
I'd like to respond.
Yeah.
The reason why we even have a judicial system to figure this out in the Supreme Court is so that we can translate laws that were written a long time ago and the fundamental underlying principles based off of the writings of those people outside of just the Constitution and determine what the fundamental reasoning was behind it. And I promise you that we're going to see coming up some sort of legislation that dictates that they have to abide by the First Amendment. Because back in the day, the public sphere was where debates happened.
Yeah, okay.
And you cannot tell me that the volume of public debates is increasingly online.
Sure, it
And
is,
I agree
but
with you.
it's
I
still a
100%
private
agree with
company.
you. Okay, no,
Then
and I'm
let's not
gonna
be
get at this right
autistic
now.
like this and say regulation
Okay, come on,
bad,
dude. Hey,
government bad.
no, you
Like,
don't need to
you
say
need
that.
to be pragmatic.
Okay.
Wait, what do
okay.
you say, Oliver?
What do you even say?
He said you don't need to be autistic about it. That's unnecessary, dude. Come on.
Who, me?
What
That
I'm
is
trying to get at.
I
What
didn't
I
even hear that.
what I
Because
what,
everyone can do
what-
that is behind a computer screen, all right? So
what I'm trying to get at here is the problem that you are mentioning is the fact that we have a ton of very large corporations controlling what's going on. And I don't think that's right. I think the way to do that is less regulation, not more, to allow for other companies to be able to rise up and create a platform that they will move to if they feel that they are being censored.
Social media fundamentally will always conglomerate into monopolies because the reason why
Right.
people use it is because people are on it.
And
Okay,
Facebook
but
has
we already have so many different sort of like social media companies, and there's going to be different people who
different
work.
functions for different purposes. Twitter is
Okay.
fundamentally different than Facebook, and YouTube is fundamentally different than the other two as well. Like, we need to keep in mind that yes, we're looking at toolboxes, right? We're looking at tools, and the different tools serve different purposes for different people, right?
So
But
do
the
you
fact of the
believe
matter,
they should
all
be
of that
private?
toolbox has to do with social interaction, and you're not going to replace a working hammer with another working hammer. It's just not going to happen.
Okay, so should the government?
Can I say something? I was kind of waiting
Yeah.
a little bit.
You're certain.
So again, you have, let's say you say, let's create your own company, create your own media platform and all that. Like, how would such a small company, with given all the monopolization of social media and how so much money is being put into Facebook and everything else to promote it, how on earth are they get the word out if, let's say, the people who are the top decide to go and censor them?
Hey,
not let
guys,
them
whoever's
spread?
host needs to kick whoever's on D Live, because when I did the I fucking hate N-words comment, they clipped that part and just that part. So
who
please
did
find
that?
out whoever's doing the D Live.
Whoever's live.
Yeah, someone clipped
Fucking
just
hilarious.
that part.
I don't know. I don't.
Comments this whole fucking time.
Well, I'm not
Who
on
do you-
D Live.
Who's live?
Who do you want me to? Who do you want me?
Hold on, chat. Let's we're gonna try to fix this. All right. Okay, just we'll be right back. Okay, just hold on.